Hey guys, tonight we're slipping behind Victorian respectability's polished facade into Mrs. Cartwright's London brothel, 1857, where silence and secrets dwell. If the idea of trading the clatter of factory looms for whispered promises and candlelit parlors doesn't sound unnerving enough, imagine waking each morning to the scent of coal-choked air, icy wash basins, and the faint perfume of desperation. Over the next 2 to 3 hours we'll follow Mary, once a weary seamstress hunched over hastily stitched hems, now a woman whose livelihood depends on measured conversation, the practiced tilt of her head, and the steady clink of coin upon a bedside table. Together we'll trace her day from the first thin light through soot-streaked windows, through hushed camaraderie in a cramped shared room, the ritual transformation into persona and gown, and finally to her quiet reflections as night's last carriage wheels fade away. This won't be a tale of gilded glamour or scandalous drama. Instead, prepare for a gentle immersion into Mary's world of small comforts, rustling silks, muted laughter, and the careful choreography of survival. We'll acknowledge the harsh realities: a city built on coal and inequality, women constrained by necessity, and the silent bargains struck behind heavy oak doors. Yet throughout you'll hear the soft cadence of history's heartbeat, a measured narrative designed to soothe rather than startle. So dim your lights, find a comfortable position, and let the gentle hum of your surroundings become part of our journey. Take a slow breath and imagine the cool stone floor beneath your feet, the distant murmur of the Thames, and the hush of voices in a dimly lit parlor. Now settle in as we begin with the first rays of dawn in Mrs. Cartwright's house, and discover why, for Mary and her companions, each day was both a refuge and a constant challenge. Before dawn truly breaks, Mary awakens to a sound that is neither voice nor wind, but something more intimate. The low, weary sigh of her straw mattress settling under her weight. It's a groan she has come to know well, an almost musical lament of splintered grains that shift and protest each movement. As she rises, each tuft of straw presses into her shoulder blades, like tiny, insistent fingers, asking why she hasn't learned comfort by now. Imagine the mattress as a reluctant companion, its ticking threadbare in places where the fabric has been mended more often than a parish widow's shawl. Here, patches of coarse cloth, salvaged from worn-out gowns or cast-off curtains, are stitched haphazardly, their edges frayed and curling. In those thin seams, stray pieces of straw peek through, pale and brittle, as if eager to escape and join the wider world of dust motes dancing in the feeble morning light. Mary shifts again, gingerly testing the rigidity of the mattress. It gives only a little, then whispers its objection in a soft crackle, as if reminding her that endurance is the currency of survival in this house. For a moment she allows herself a wry thought, that one day she might share stories of this mattress's many complaints. Had it thumbs, it would surely wag them. But there's no time for levity. Habit pulls her into a steady rhythm. She inhales, feels the cold air fill her lungs, and exhales in a deliberate puff, careful not to startle the woman beside her who still sleeps, curled like a tired child. Beneath Mary, the straw mattress is both bed and boundary, declaring the limits of her world. It's thin enough that she can feel the chill of the slate roof's shadow above, and firm enough that luxury has never been its concern. Yet in its simple design, a sack stitched tight and stuffed full of straw, it offers what little comfort can be found here, a place to rest before the day's demands begin. The room remains hushed. Aside from the mattress's subtle rumble, every creak of floorboard, every rustle of the quilt, seems amplified in the stillness. It's as though the house itself holds its breath, awaiting Mary's next move. In that moment, the thin barrier between wakefulness and sleep feels as fragile as the ticking under her hips. Mary reaches out to smooth a stray patch of fabric, her fingertips tracing the lines of countless stitches. She notes the contrast between the roughness of the puckered cloth and the unexpected softness where her elbow rests, evidence of a careful repair, perhaps done by Miss Cartwright herself, or one of the older women with nimble fingers. That single detail, a small act of consideration in a world that offers few, brings a flash of warmth to Mary's chest. A mattress may complain, but it also endures, much like its occupant. She lies back for a moment, eyes tracking a faint beam of grey light that travels across the quilt. Dust particles drift lazily in its path, each one a tiny testament to time's steady march. Mary allows her thoughts to drift with them, granting herself this brief pause before the day's chores commence. The cold wash, the silent steps, the chatter of women stitching and scrubbing in neighbouring rooms. The mattress's complaint subsides as Mary settles into stillness, a shared truce between body and bed. In its enduring resistance, she finds a gentle reminder that survival is not a matter of grand gestures, but of small repeated acts, rising each morning despite the discomfort, pressing onward despite the groans of straw and sinew. And so, with a soft exhale, Mary prepares to rise. The straw mattress falls silent, its grievance momentarily satisfied. It, like Mary, has endured another night. And in this quiet understanding between woman and bedding, the day's first ritual is complete. As Mary settles back into the uneven comfort of her straw mattress, a patchwork quilt drapes over her shoulders like a quiet confession. At first glance it might look like an assortment of mismatched rags hastily sewn together, and in a sense it is, yet each square carries its own muted story, its own whispered history, as though the quilt itself has gathered scraps of other lives to guard Mary against the chill of dawn. Feel the fabric under your fingertips. A segment of coarse, homespun linen once used for church service napkins. Its embroidery faded to the palest cream. Beside it, a slender strip of old silk scarf frays at the edge, the delicate weave still holding a hint of once lustrous dye, perhaps cerulean blue or deep ruby, now softened by time and countless washings. A small swath of floral calico petals half erased by wear suggests summer petticoats and garden breezes that have long since given way to soot-laden wind and the clatter of carriage wheels. Each patch is an island of sensation. The linen patch feels stiff, but oddly reassuring, like the steady rhythm of a hymn. The silk section, though fragile, still glides under a fingertip, evoking a moment of softness amidst this house's more abrasive edges. The calico, thin and worn, reminds Mary of fleeting warmth, the way the sun might have settled on her skin during happier hours. All are stitched together with thick, uneven thread, looping through layers of patch and backing in sturdy knots that insist on holding fast. There is subtle humour in the quilt's randomness. Mary sometimes imagines it as a council of mismatched personalities, an old sermon cloth, a flashy silk, and a prime calico, all bickering beneath her chin about whose turn it is to keep her warm. If it could talk, perhaps the calico would sigh, "I was once part of a lady's summer dress," while the linen might respond with a louder, more earnest tone, "And I, dear heart, served in the house of worship for Sunday to Sunday." The silk, in a whisper, would claim aristocratic origins, and promptly smooth its wispiest lines, as though embarrassed to share company with such plain companions. Yet in their coalition, they form something stronger than any single fabric could be. Patches of deep burgundy and soft cream arrange themselves in no particular pattern, save the one necessity, utility. They create a barrier, a nightly shield between Mary and the chill of the slate roof's shadow, between her and the house's ever-present damp. In winter, she tucks the quilt as close to her neck as she dares, breathing in the mingled scents of canvas, cotton, and silk, a perfume more complex than any shop-bought blend. Listen for the faint rasp of thread as Mary shifts beneath this quilted tapestry. Each stitch protests in a soft murmur, the seams whispering reminders of every repair, every time it was mended to keep serving its purpose. Dust motes drift in a single beam of dawn light, settling upon the quilt's surface like tiny travellers alighting after a long journey. Perhaps they remember the dozen hands that guided the needle, the soft thump of thread spools, the occasional muttered exasperation when a knot refused to yield. In this patchwork, Mary finds more than warmth. She finds connection. Here lies the echo of a Sunday congregation fretting over pew cushions. There, the gentle rustle of a lady's satin skirt brushing against palace floors. Tucked between can almost sense the heartbeat of a bustling dressmaker's shop, scissors snipping through calico, fingers pinning and folding. These fragments of other worlds and other women hold Mary close each night, an invisible sisterhood woven through cloth and care. So as you, dear listener, imagine this quilt drawn up to Mary's chin. Allow its quiet devotion to calm your own mind. Feel its weight settle across your ribs, a reminder that even in the humblest of protections there is dignity and shared history. Let the faded florals and fraying edges lull you, the gentle murmur of its seams and the subtle humour of its mismatched counsel carrying you toward the next breath, the next moment of rest. Safe beneath the patchwork quilt of faded dreams. In the half-light of dawn, Mary becomes aware of another presence in the attic. Her roommate, sleeping silently beneath a quilt, equally worn and patched. You'd never guess, looking at the neat tangle of knotted hair and shallow chest movements, that this woman had shared half a dozen hushed confidences only hours before. Now, in sleep, she offers a steady counterpoint to Mary's own waking breaths, forming an unspoken duet of mutual vigilance. Picture the roommate's form curled into the smallest possible space, as though she fears someone might sweep through and claim the extra inches. Her shoulders rise and fall with ragged precision, each exhale a soft hiss that blends with the creaks of the floorboards. There's a certain rhythm to it. Two bodies, one slow inhale, one softer exhale, creating a private metronome for this wooden-walled sanctuary. The quilt drawn over her is a different mosaic than Mary's own. Here, the colours are darker, a square of charcoal flannel that once might have been part of a gentleman's discarded coat, stitched edge to edge with strips of deep plum and midnight blue. A single patch of striped cotton, likely from a boarding house sheet, peeks out at the corner. In these fragments you sense a story half told, perhaps a boarder who left in haste a silk dress of more opulent origins, now repurposed to keep someone's shoulders warm. As Mary watches, she notes the roommate's hair, a thick braid, knotted at intervals with tiny scraps of ribbon. The braid coils around itself like a sleeping serpent, its ends tucked neatly beneath the quilt. Occasionally a stray curl unwinds and brushes the mattress, only to be coaxed back into place by Mary's gentle fingertip. There's an unspoken courtesy in that small act of tidying, much like smoothing a companion's pillow in a crowded train carriage. The roommate's breathing holds subtle variations, telling of dreams that drift between anxiety and calm. When a particularly deep sigh escapes her lips, Mary allows herself a flicker of amusement. If that sigh had words, what might it say? Perhaps something like, "I wish the client had preferred that other gown." Or, "If I hear one more knock at the parlour door." But even in the tiniest crack of imagination, Mary keeps her humour, as discreet as a whispered secret. Around them, the attic remains hushed. A single beam of grey light cuts across the floor, illuminating motes that dance like slow-falling snow. Dust settles on the roommate's quilt in pale flecks, and Mary watches as one or two particles drift onto the braid, settling into the dark threads. It's a quiet tableau, one of many such moments in a house that values discretion above all. With deliberate slowness, Mary adjusts her own blanket, careful not to rustle the mattress in a way that might wake her companion. She knows, as all the women here do, that waking too soon can lead to inadvertent noise, shuffled slippers, a clinking basin, a whispered apology. In this attic, unity is born of restraint. Each woman's comfort hinges on collective stillness, a shared understanding that peace here is as precious as any coin. Mary breathes in the faint aroma of lavender drifting between them. Mrs. Cartwright's perfume sachets tucked beneath each mattress. The scent blends with the mustiness of old fabric and the cold edge of the slate roof, creating an olfactory cushion that softens the attic's harder angles. She wonders for a moment if the roommate dreams of lavender fields rather than cobblestone alleys, but quickly dismisses it. Better to leave dreams unexamined. They have a tendency to wake with sharp edges. As Mary rises to begin her morning rituals, she offers a final, silent nod to the sleeping figure beside her, as if acknowledging a shared bond that requires no ceremony. The roommate's chest rises once more, a gentle affirmation that life continues in these recycled quilts and creaking floors. And so, in this quiet chamber of joint repose, two women, strangers by daylight, companions by circumstance, complete their shared dawn ritual. Each careful exhale, each stifled movement, each moment of mutual consideration echoes the unspoken promise to guard one another's rest, to bear witness to each other's weary return at night, and to find in the muted rhythm of shared breaths a fragile comfort that carries them into the day ahead. Long before any bird stirs or carriage wheels clatter, the attic breathes in the city's damp sigh. Imagine, if you will, a single narrow window high in the moss-darkened brick wall. Through its grimy panes, the air carries a rich, earthy perfume, an olfactory tapestry woven from last night's rain and centuries of footsteps. This is the damp cobblestone musk, a scent you learn to recognize as easily as your own heartbeat. The stones themselves are ancient actors in this daily ritual. Each cobble, worn smooth by countless boots and wheels, holds within its pores the memory of sooty water, pooling in low spots, of horse hoofprints turned shallow craters, and of countless gutters overflow. When the rain ceases, the stones exhale. That exhalation carries a deep, loamy note, part clay, part river silt, part the faintest whisper of rotten leaf and submerged wood. Inhale too quickly and you might taste the tang of cold metal, the residual flavor of water trickling through iron-rimmed drains. Through the attic's tiny window, this scent drifts upward in undulating waves. It greets Mary as she lifts the lid on her tin basin, mingling with the echo of her first deliberate breath. You can almost hear the cobble's soft exhalation, an understated humph at being disturbed before their leisurely dawn confession. If cobblestones had voices, they might mutter, "Yes, yes, we know you're awake. Can't a girl or a stone enjoy a few extra minutes of peace?" Descend in your mind's eye to the street below. Imagine a painter's palette of greys and browns, each hue given depth by the moisture clinging to rough surfaces. Fingers of mist curl through narrow alleys, touching walls and seeping down into cracks where delicate spores take root. The scent intensifies near doorways, where foot traffic churns the damp into a soft, earthy aroma that rises like steam. Street lamps, still dim, glow weakly through the haze, lending a glossy sheen to each stone's rounded surface. In those early moments, the damp cobblestone musk is more than mere background ambience. It is a tactile presence, brushing against Mary's ankles as she pads across the attic's weathered floorboards. She imagines stepping barefoot onto those stones, each slab cold and yielding slightly beneath her weight, sending a ripple of chill up through her toes. The stone's musk clings to her skin, anchoring her to the city's pulse, its industries, its markets, and its undercurrents of unseen lives. Yet, this scent carries its own subtle humor. Consider how it insists on making itself known, even through cracked glass and rickety frames. As though to say, "I'm still here, best not forget me," no matter how lofty your quilt, or how carefully you stoke your fire. In that way, the cobblestone musk is a gentle admonition. The world beyond your attic room is vast, damp, and indifferent. It moves in layers, first the earthy base from the stone, then the smoky undertone of coal kilns, and finally the sharp tang of Thames brine, all coalescing into a signature perfume of London's heart. Allow yourself, for a moment, to luxuriate in that complexity. Draw in a deep, unhurried breath, feeling the musk unfurl across your palate, as if tasting a fine, if unrefined, wine. Notice how the stone's damp whisper softens the edges of anxiety, grounding you in the present, while inviting contemplation of days past. The midnight downpours that flooded alleyways, the boots that marched at dawn with purpose or despair, the careful mopping of tavern spills that left their own fleeting imprint. And as you sit with this scent, warm, earthy, unwavering, let it guide you gently toward the next breath. Feel the slow rhythm of the city's exhalation, steady and reassuring, promising continuity even when comfort seems scarce. In the enveloping hush of the attic, that damp cobblestone musk becomes a quiet companion, one that, like all true friends, knows you by scent alone and requires no further introduction. Beneath the damp musk of cobblestones, there is another, deeper note in London's morning symphony: the coal fire undertones. Imagine, just beyond the narrow gutter and the mottled brickwork, a network of hearths has already awakened, each feeding its small, private inferno. That collective warmth exudes an undercurrent of acrid sweetness, smoke and soot, mingled in a low, reassuring roar. Picture a single hearth, its grate piled with pale grey lumps of coal. As the first flame takes hold, the coal hisses, cracks, and releases a muted puff of embers, tiny sparks that dance for an instant before surrendering to soft tendrils of smoke. Multiply that by 1,000 hearths across the city, and you sense a deep, resonant exhale, a sigh of wood and mineral that drifts through open chimney stacks and seeps into attics, taverns, and tenement rooms alike. Mary inhales this ancient perfume as she pants gently over her basin, and tastes of charred earth and mineral grit, a flavour both abrasive and strangely comforting. The acrid smoke carries a warmth that seems to wrap around her shoulders, offsetting the morning's chill. If the damp cobblestone musk grounds her in the raw pulse of the street, the coal fire undertones remind her of the hearth's promise that somewhere below, families stir their porridge, and businesses spark to life in bakeries, blacksmith shops and laundry stalls. There's a subtle humour in the industrial chorus, One might imagine coal lumps as over-enthusiastic guests at a silent retreat, refusing to stay quiet, coughing up plumes of smoke whenever no one is looking. They claim, "We'll warm the city for you, but you must repay us in soot." And London, ever the accommodating host, accepts the deal without a shrug. In return, it gains warmth and the steady pulse of commerce. Listen closely, and you can discern different voices in the chorus. A low, almost melodic whistle from a bakery oven, a deeper, guttural growl from a foundry furnace, a timid, sputtering cough from a damp fireplace, just coaxed back to life. Each hearth adds its own timbre, creating a layered soundscape that hums beneath the city's waking bustle. The collective roar is not intrusive, but rather acts like gentle background music, underscoring the day's unfolding drama without demanding center stage. Inhale again, and let the smoke settle at the back of your throat. Feel its warmth ripple through your chest, a subtle blaze that contrasts with the predator's chill of the attic's midnight drafts. The soot-scented breeze carries microscopic flecks of black through the air, dust motes that sparkle like tiny constellations when caught in a stray beam of sunlight. They drift lazily, painting the dust in Mary's attic with smoky freckles. This acrid aroma is as much a part of life here as the cobblestones themselves. It clings to hair and clothing, transforms mittens into charcoal-kissed sleeves, and leaves a faint residue on lips long after the first cup of tea. In winter it thickens into a tangible fog that settles over the city, pressing against windows and doors, seeking any crack through which to insinuate itself. Yet even its persistence can feel familiar, like the steady tick of a clock or the distant toll of a bell, reminding all within earshot that the world endures, warmed by countless small fires. As Mary steps away from the basin, smoothing her skirts, she carries that coal smoke warmth within her. It rises in gentle eddies from her sleeves, mingles with the lavender sachets blush, and rounds out the attic's olfactory portrait. In her lungs, the undertones kindle a quiet resolve, a reminder that industry fuels not only profits, but also survival. And so, as you breathe in these coal fire undertones, let the smoke's low hum calm your own thoughts. Visualize the city's many hearths, each quietly roaring to life, and permit their collective warmth to seep into you. In their enduring glow, find a slow, steady rhythm that carries you gently forward, toward the next breath, the next moment of calm, and the unfolding story beyond Mrs. Cartwright's attic window. Amid the lingering musk of damp stones and the low roar of distant hearths, there is a gentler note in Mary's attic sanctuary. The pale, floral hush of lavender sachets, tucked neatly into each corner of her mattress. These small cloth pouches offer a fragile veil of calm, as if a sliver of summer had been pressed into service against the city's raw edges. Imagine lifting the quilt's corner to reveal one of these sachets, no larger than a woman's palm, stitched from delicate muslin and tied with a faded ribbon. Within its soft confines lie tiny buds of lavender, their dried petals still retaining a whisper of centuries-old Provençal fields. Even now, as the attic air chills her shoulders, Mary inhales the sachet's subtle aroma, a gentle counterpoint to the smoke and damp that swirl beyond. The lavender's scent is neither cloying nor insistent. Instead, it hovers on the edge of perception, a breath of floral calm that drifts across her senses like a soft-spoken friend. It carries notes of honeyed sweetness, a hint of woodland pine, and a barely audible earthiness, reminders that despite London's cold dark skies and soot-laden streets, nature's quiet beauty can still be summoned into this cramped room. In the half-light, the sachets appear almost whimsical. Tiny pillows of potential peace, nestled among patched quilts and grimy boards. They are Mrs. Cartwright's concession to order, a simple talisman that suggests cleanliness and care, even where both are scant. Beneath each mattress corner, the sachets press gently against the linens, winking their promise at the women who sleep above them. Rest here if but for a moment. Here, the world softens. Mary allows her fingertips to brush the sachet's surface. The muslin is worn thin in places, its weave giving way to small gaps where slender stalks of lavender protrude. She teases one stray bud free and holds it to her nose, noting the soft crunch as it yields to pressure. It exudes that same pale, floral hush, infusing the air with a calm that feels almost surreal amid the attic's harsher undertones. There is subtle humor in this floral interlude. One might picture Mrs. Cartwright as a stern conductor, dictating that each mattress must bear its lavender note, lest the house descend into chaos. Picture her brandishing sachets like tiny scepters, insisting that in this establishment we may be sinful, but at least we shall smell delightful. It's easy to imagine her directing the women with a wry smile. Place these, do try not to misplace them among your other assets. Yet the lavender's effectiveness is no jest. When the wind shifts and the first tendrils of smoke drift in, the sachet's aroma stands firm, weaving a delicate barrier against dampness and soot. They soften the room's sharper contours, turning each breath into a layered experience, a whisper of stone and smoke, followed by the tender exhale of lavender's lullaby. In the hour before dawn, Mary finds herself breathing in time with that gentle floral note. Inhale. The city's grit settles in her lungs. Exhale, lavender's hush drifts through her chest. In this pulsing rhythm, tension ebbs, and the attic's hard edges fade into the background. The soft scent wraps around her like a second skin, offering protection no mattress or quilt alone could provide. Even as footsteps and distant voices stir elsewhere in the house, the sachet's promise remains steadfast. It is a quiet companion through Mary's morning rituals. The tin basins clink, the rasp of soap, the careful sliding of slippers. Whenever her thoughts threaten to stray toward yesterday's anxieties or tomorrow's uncertainties, a subtle whiff of lavender brings her back to the present's gentle hush. So, dear listener, as you settle into your own evening's rest, imagine placing a lavender sachet beneath your pillow. Feel its pale fragrance drift through your mind, softening your day's memories and lulling your thoughts toward calm. In that shared breath of floral hush, the world's harder notes fade, and you, like Mary, find a fragile veil of calm amid life's relentless rhythms. In the soft half-light of dawn, Mary lifts her feet from the straw mattress and lowers them onto the attic's wooden floorboards. There is no slipper barrier here, only skin meeting wood, and a subtle communion begins. Imagine your own bare soles, cool and slightly clammy from the night's rest, gliding across planks that have been polished smooth by countless footsteps. Each board carries the imprint of 1,000 stories, each step echoing with faint memory. The first contact is gentle. Mary's toes splay slightly, seeking out the most comfortable path across the uneven surface. The wood responds with a whisper, a delicate creak at the seam where two boards meet, as though offering a soft greeting rather than an abrupt complaint. It's a sound she has come to trust, like the low murmur of a friend who knows your secrets. Underfoot, the boards are riddled with tiny grooves and ridges, fingerprints of time. Imagine running your hand along an old fence, feeling the splintered grain and the places where knots have been smoothed by wind and winter. Here it is the weight of bodies that has rubbed the wood into gentle undulation. You sense where Mary's steps will next find ease, a flattened area polished nearly to a low sheen, a faded patch where a single board once sagged beneath heavier loads. Each creak is unique. One plank moans with an elongated groan, perhaps protesting the early hour, while another emits a crisp chirp, as though reminding Mary of a forgotten promise. If the floor were vocal, it might comment, "Ah, back so soon," or "Careful where you place that heel." There is subtly observational humor in imagining the boards as gossipy elders, tasked with recording each passage, yet refusing to do so too loudly. Mary moves slowly, testing the rhythm of her own breathing against the floor's quiet dialogue. Inhale. She senses a gentle flex beneath her arch, a pliant warmth where wood meets flesh. Exhale. The creak follows, a soft punctuation that marks her progress. There is no rush here, only the deliberate choreography of a woman who knows that every misstep could awaken the slumbering house beyond. Around her, the attic's hush magnifies each sound, a distant cough from a neighboring room, the drip of a leaky gutter, the muted scrape of a chair being pushed back. These are all woven into the morning's delicate tapestry, but it is the barefoot steps that serve as the lead thread, guiding the pattern with purpose and care. Feel the wood's texture. Some boards are warm from the night's residual heat, while others retain the cellar's evening chill. Mary's soles adjust instinctively, shifting weight toward the boards that offer a hint of warmth, as though seeking out small comforts wherever they can be found. A slight give beneath larger planks hints at the attic's age, the slow sag of decades, a reminder that even solid structures yield over time. There is a silent agreement between Mary and the floor. She will tread softly, and it will carry her without complaint. With each measured step, she moves closer to the tiny washroom door, each footfall bringing her nearer to the basin's promise of cold water and a proper awakening. Yet even that destination is secondary to the ritual itself, the simple act of moving through space in harmony with one's surroundings. As Mary reaches the doorway, she pauses, allowing one final creak to sound. It is an acknowledgement of passage, an announcement rendered in wood rather than words. Then, with the same deliberate slowness, she lifts her foot to step inside, leaving the worn boards to rest until next night's return. And so, dear listener, imagine your own bare feet upon those time-worn boards. Feel the gentle creaks, the subtle shifts, the lived-in warmth beneath your soles. Let each delicate sound lull your mind, guiding you into the next phase of Mary's morning ritual, and perhaps leading you closer to a calm, reflective state of your own. As Mary approaches the tiny washroom door, the world narrows to a single point of transition, the threshold between the soft refuge of her attic nook and the crisp, precise chill of morning ablutions. In that narrow space, a pair of leather slippers awaits, positioned with exacting care. Imagine those slippers for a moment, rounded at the toe, supple yet sturdy, their once vibrant dye faded to the color of damp clay. They sit on the worn floorboards like sentinels, ready to perform their humble duty. Mary pauses, lifting one foot from the cool timber. The attic's hush deepens, as though holding its breath for what comes next. There is a near inaudible scuff as she slides her bare foot into the first slipper. Feel the soft leather envelop her heel, the gentle resistance of the insole accepting her arch. A faint sigh escapes from the toe joint, a tiny concession that welcomes her weight. If that sigh could speak, it might murmur, "At last, some respect for my decades of service." She shifts her weight, testing the slipper's comfort. The leather creaks in response. A brief, calculated protest that dissolves almost instantly. It's as though the slipper is amused by this daily ritual, its loyalty demonstrated in a single soft sound rather than any grand declaration. Mary smiles inwardly at the thought. Here, in these modest implements, lies a partnership of necessity and familiarity. Her other foot follows, sliding into its counterpart with the same muted choreography. There is a small victory in that act, the securing of warmth and protection before stepping into the washroom's unforgiving cold. As Mary stands, the slippers cradle her feet, their presence a gentle reminder that even in hardship, comfort can be found in the simplest of accessories. Through the half-open washroom door, Mary senses the shift in atmosphere. The damp chill of stone floors and tile edges drifts out like a silent invitation to cleanliness. But for a moment she lingers in the threshold, heels settled into leather, toes still savoring the last shivers of attic warmth. In that pause lies everything she needs. A breath's worth of transition, a recognition that each small change of footwear carries her from one realm of experience to another. With deliberate slowness, Mary shifts forward. The slippers glide with a hushed scuff across the board, trading the attic's forgiving give for the washroom's unforgiving firmness. Imagine the sensation, the leather gripping her foot more snugly, the sole meeting cold tile with a muted click. It is a polite announcement of arrival. No brass band, on the slipper's low-key greeting. Inside the washroom, the basin's promise awaits. But for now, attention rests on the slipper exchange itself. There is subtle humor in this vignette. A pair of worn leather slippers, patiently stationed day after day, performing their uncomplicated service without complaint. They are the unsung heroes of Mary's morning ritual, reliable, unassuming and essential. Across the threshold, she takes a final, measured breath. The attic's soft scents, quilt fabric, lavender sachet, lingering coal smoke remain nestled at her back. Ahead lies the sharp scent of cold water and soap. But in her slippers, Mary carries warmth with her. Each step forward is cushioned by their familiar embrace, each scuff a whispered conversation between leather and foot. And so, dear listener, imagine performing your own slipper exchange. The slight hesitation, the careful slide, the soft sigh of leather welcoming your weight. Let that gentle rhythm guide you, bridging the gap between comfort and ritual, until you, like Mary, stand ready to embrace the day's next act. Each footfall a testament to the small but profound comforts we carry with us. At the threshold of Mary's morning ritual stands a simple tin basin, its metal sides dulled by years of service. Imagine its hollow bell-like shape as she lifts it from the corner where it rests, its rim cold against her fingertips. With a muted clink, she places it on a low wooden stool, the sound echoing softly in the hushed attic. It is the overture to her day's first symphony of care. The basin awaits water, clear, bracing, and unadorned. Mary reaches for a chipped pitcher, its handle worn smooth by countless hands. She pours steadily, listening to the cascade, as each drop joins its companions in the basin's rounded depths. The water's surface ripples gently, reflecting the pale dawn light that filters through the attic window. In that moment, the basin seems to breathe, its shallow pool poised between stillness and stir. Beside the basin lies a bar of soap, a modest rectangle of ash-grey hardened fat and lye, exuding a faint tang of chemistry. You can almost sense its anticipation, as though it trembles at the thought of service. Mary picks it up, noting its rough edges, places where it has been pressed into use too many times to count. She brings it to her palm, and moistens it briefly in the basin's chill. The soap hisses, a delicate sizzle that resonates like a whispered prelude. Then comes the duet. Mary rubs the soap between her damp palms, coaxing a lather that swells into soft peaks. The rasp of soap against skin is subtle yet insistent, a gritty aria that pulses in time with her heart. Each circular motion draws a ribbon of foam that slides along her forearms, cleansing more than the residue of last night's fatigue. There is a ritualistic firmness in those strokes, an assertion of her promise to face the day with clarity and purpose. Listen for the layered notes, the gentle slosh as water shifts in the basin, the faint creak of her elbow against the stool, the whisper of foam as it brushes against her skin. Each element contributes to a slow, deliberate rhythm. Inhale, the tang of lye and oil mingles in her nostrils. Exhale, the soapy residue washes away, carrying with it strands of weariness. Mary's face comes next. She lifts the lathered soap to her cheeks in practiced arcs, eyes half closed as the fine grit scrubs at lingering traces of dust and sleep. The basin's cool water follows, chasing away foam in rivulets that trace silver lines down her jaw. There is a faint, wry thought that perhaps she resembles a soldier anointing armor before battle. But instead of mail, she readies her skin, forging resilience in the quiet heat of self-care. Observe the soap's final bow. Mary places it back beside the basin, now smaller, its edges softened further by use. It settles with a soft click, as though taking a gentle breath. The basin, too, finds rest on its stool, its pool of water reflecting the attic's muted shadows. The duet concludes not with fanfare but with a shared exhale, Mary's and the basin's, echoing the room's steady hush. As Mary rises and straightens her skirts, the remnants of foam cling to her wrists like pale ribbons. She wipes them on a coarse towel, each tug of fabric releasing faint soap flakes into the air. In their descent, they become part of the attic's dust, drifting lazily in motes that sparkle in dawn's glow. And so, dear listener, imagine your own basin and soap duet. Feel the metal's coolness, the lather's gentle resistance, the water's cleansing promise. Let each clink, each rasp, each splash form a slow, meditative cadence. In this small ceremony of morning hygiene, discover not mere cleanliness, but the forging of resolve, a quiet anthem that carries you forward into the day's next movement. In the soft lull of midday light, the Brothels' parlors fall silent for a brief reprieve. The clientele have paused their visits, and in the quiet that follows, Mary retreats to what she's come to think of as her sanctuary, a battered wooden table set beneath a single, trembling candle flame. Here, her nimble fingers take up a silk bodice, its once lustrous fabric now bearing the faintest tear beneath the arm. Imagine that tear for a moment. A slender fissure in a delicate weave, as if a stray fingernail reached out and nicked the cloth by accident. The edges have begun to unravel, fine threads curling like wisps of smoke. Mary lays the bodice atop a scrap of calico to protect her dress beneath, and in this simple gesture, the day's broader demands recede. This is her domain. Needle, thread, and fabric conspire to restore what was damaged. Her candle sputters, painting the room in slow, golden pulses. With each flicker, the silk surface shifts from pale blush to muted pewter, revealing patterns of tiny flowers woven into the brocade. Mary threads her needle, pulling a length of fine, unbleached thread through the eye with a soft tug. She knots the end, places her thumb against the silk, and draws the needle through. The gentle pop of fabric yielding beneath her tool is almost inaudible, yet it resonates in the hush. a quiet promise that repair is possible. As her needle moves back and forth, Mary's hands fall into a rhythmic dance. Each stitch is even, looping through the tier with patient precision. The silk gathers for a heartbeat, then smooths itself, the wound closing beneath her touch. In these moments she is both artist and healer, coaxing elegance back into a garment that must serve both function and desire. Around her, the other women attend to their own chores, scrubbing the hearth, arranging clean linens, polishing mirror frames, but Mary remains in her seat, absorbed in the seamstress's sanctuary. Occasionally a soft murmur drifts by. "Pass the scissors, please." Or, "Did you see the new girl's ribbons?" But mostly the room holds its breath, granting her this quiet interlude. There is a subtle humour in the contrast. Once Mary might have fretted for fashion's sake over a torn seam in her own frock. Now she mends silk not for vanity but for livelihood, stitching together a world in which every garment counts. If fabric could speak, it might sigh with relief under her touch, as though murmuring, "Ah, that's better," before resuming its role in the parlor's muted grandeur. As the seamstress's sanctuary grows bright with each repaired stitch, Mary senses something else take shape: the bonds of community. A well-mended bodice ensures a client's satisfaction. Yes, but it also sparks quiet appreciation among the women. A neighbor might later lean close and whisper, "You've outdone yourself," offering a small smile that needs no words to convey respect. In this way, the simple act of mending becomes an unspoken fellowship, threads of solidarity woven into every seam. When the tier is fully sealed, Mary examines her work in the candle's glow. The silk lies smooth and unmarred, its integrity restored. She gently brushes away a stray bit of lint, then dips her finger in a dish of scented balm and smooths it over the repaired area, part protective gloss, part subtle perfume. It is the final flourish in this understated ceremony. With a contented breath, Mary curls the bodice around her arm and passes it to the next woman waiting in line. The recipient offers a nod of grateful approval, and Mary returns to her seat, candlelight catching the soft curve of her smile. In this shared ritual, fabric brought to order, scars hidden, purpose reaffirmed, the Brothels women find not only utility but kinship. And so, dear listener, imagine your own fingers tracing that silk surface, the needle's gentle tug, the stitch's soft pop. Let the measured rhythm of repair, the warmth of camaraderie, and the glow of a single candle guide you toward a calm reflection on the subtle artistry that sustains both cloth and community. In the gentle lull between midday chores and evening appointments, the parlor becomes a stage awaiting its final flourish. Mary steps into this hushed arena with tools of her trade, a soft feather duster, a damp cloth, and a narrow brush reserved for hearthstone secrets. Each motion follows a deliberate cadence, as if conducting a silent symphony of order and care. First, there are the curtains, heavy velvet drapes that hang like silent sentinels over tall windows. Mary grasps a lower hem in one hand and gives it a gentle shake, watching the nap lift in a soft wave. The fabric sighs, releasing a fine cloud of dust motes that catch the stray beam of light. She brushes the folds upward, fluffing each pleat with fingertips that feel the nap's direction, smoothing away creases laid down by yesterday's hush. As the velvet settles into place, it offers a muted sheen, a promise that those seated here will be seen through softened lenses of luxury. Next, Mary's cloth finds its way to the brass candlesticks perched on a small side table. Their polished surfaces once gleamed like sunlit dewdrops. Now they carry the faintest patina of soot and wax. With measured strokes, she wipes the round base, following the curve until every tarnished patch yields. The cloth darkens where smudges resist, and Mary allows herself a wry thought that these aristocratic-looking objects secretly relish the attention. Yes, yes, she imagines them murmuring. We appreciate being admired. With each circular motion, the brass warms under her touch. Regaining its lustrous glow, she lifts the candle holder, checks the taper inside for drips, then gives the glass shade a final polish before replacing it. A tap on the hearth signals readiness, and Mary steps back to admire her work. 2 candlesticks now stand at perfect attention, reflecting the parlor's muted glow. The hearth itself commands the most tender care. Its stones, once caked with cold ash, lie beneath the mantel like patient witnesses to countless suppers and whispered confidences. Mary picks up her narrow bristled brush and approaches the hearth with solemn respect. She taps the brush against the floor to loosen stray embers, then kneels to coax the dust into neat piles. Each stroke sends tiny grey clouds dancing in the air, only to be swept aside into a waiting pan. There is a subtle humour in this ash ballet. Mary imagines the hearthstones as reluctant dancers, wanting only to doze, but compelled by her choreography. One more turn, they might grumble, but obediently they yield to the brush's gentle insistence. When the hearth gleams once more, its stones cool, clear, and ready to spark, the parlour inhales a collective sigh of satisfaction. Finally, Mary takes a moment to smooth her skirts and admire the room's renewed calm. The velvet curtains fall in soft waves, the brass candlesticks catch every candle's flicker, and the hearth rests in austere dignity. It is a delicate choreography, performed in silence yet resonating with pride. Pride in place, in craftsmanship, in the small rituals that elevate this house above the chaos of the street. As Mary retreats to the next task, she allows herself one quiet smile. In these gentle motions, fluffing velvet, coaxing metal, brushing ash, she finds more than cleanliness. She finds purpose, connection, and a fleeting taste of mastery over a world that often feels beyond control. And in that, dear listener, lies the true comfort of the parlour polishing ritual, a measured dance of hands and hearts, restoring order so that for a few precious moments, everything feels just right. In the muted hours before afternoon callers resume their visits, Mary retreats to a shadowed corner of the parlour, where a small wooden chest rests beneath a lace-trimmed cloth. This chest, weathered and unassuming, is the repository for the women's secret ledger. Tiny baubles, folded scraps of ribbon, and the occasional coin slipped from a patron's purse. Here, in hushed service, each trinket is counted, catalogued, and returned to its hidden alcove, an act of quieter defiance woven into the day's other routines. The chest's lid creaks in welcome as Mary lifts it, revealing rows of compartments carved into the wood. She inhales the familiar scent of old cedar mingled with cigarette ash, a testament to the chest's many keepers. With slow deliberation, she reaches into the first nook and draws out a slim silver locket, its surface etched with a barely legible heart. The metal feels cool against her palm, and she imagines its origin, perhaps a scorned lover's foolish gift, now repurposed as currency in this house's own economy. Next, Mary uncurls a length of faded ribbon, its once vibrant scarlet dulled to a rustic rose. The ribbon's silky weave is frayed at the edges, whispering of gowns and gloved hands that clutched it before it may have adorned a coiffure or bound a small bouquet. She folds it with care, noting the way the fabric catches the light, and tucks it back into its compartment as though laying a beloved pet gently to rest. A quiet chuckle escapes Mary's throat as she uncovers a tiny confetti of mother-of-pearl buttons, iridescent and chipped. The dressmaker left these for me, she imagines, whispering to the chest's dark interior. I returned the favour when she wasn't looking. Each button holds its own story, an accidental souvenir pocketed from a client's discarded coat, a lift so small it felt more like retrieval than theft. Her fingertips then brush a single copper penny, worn nearly smooth by years of circulation. Against its rounded edge, she feels the year stamped faintly into its surface, a quiet anchor to time's passage. That penny had likely jingled at the bottom of a man's purse, promising more than it delivered. In this chest, it becomes a token of resourcefulness, enough at times to buy a crust of bread or a stolen moment of respite. Mary moves methodically through each compartment, uncovering broken brooches and rusted hairpins, shards of coloured glass that glimmer like sea-washed pebbles, and the occasional scrap of parchment, perhaps a hurried note in a lover's hand. In this curated cache, every object is a minor rebellion against circumstance, a small claim on agency in a world determined to render these women invisible. There is subtle humour in this clandestine ledger. The chest might regard itself as the brothel's vault of secrets, its contents more potent than any sealed letter or locked drawer. You could imagine it boasting in silent pride, "I hold fortunes here, nothing grand, but fortunes nonetheless." The women, for their part, treat it with reverence, each contribution a vote of confidence in the chest's capacity to safeguard their small rebellions. When the last trinket is returned to its slot, Mary lowers the lid with a satisfying click. The chest exhales its warmth back into the room, and for a moment, the parlour feels charged with unspoken histories. Each ribbon, coin, and bauble carries more weight here than any sumptuous gown or perfumed sachet. It testifies to the women's ingenuity, their whispered alliances, and their determination to claim, no matter how modestly, a slice of autonomy. As Mary stands and dusts her hands, she offers the chest a nod of respect. In the grand ledger of the world, these small entries may never be recorded, yet to these women, they matter beyond measure. And so, dear listener, imagine yourself leaning close to that wooden chest, the hush of its hidden treasures enveloping you. Let the gentle weight of each trinket, the soft click of its return, and the chest's silent companionship guide you toward reflection on the quieter forms of resistance that sustain us all. In the gentle lull of midday, the parlor's soft glow becomes a temporary amphitheater for news from the streets. Gathered around a worn velvet chaise, the women lean in as one of their number. Sarah lowers her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. She speaks of distant factory gates, where rows of workers have set down their tools and raised their voices in unison. A strike born of aching backs and empty bellies. Imagine Sarah's words drifting through the parlor air like autumn leaves caught on a mild breeze. They say hundreds have joined, she murmurs, careful to keep her tone hushed. You can almost see the scene she describes. A sea of caps bobbing in front of iron gates, banners scrawled on torn fabric, and the sharp crack of leather belts flogging the air more in anger than in promise. Each whispered detail carries its own weight, the promise of collective power balanced by the fear of police batons and broken windows. The women exchange quick glances. Their own world, governed by schedules and whispered codes, suddenly feels part of something larger. Mary's ears prick at the phrase broken windows, and she wonders not about the homeowner's losses, but about the crackling sound of shattering glass underfoot. She pictures a pane spiraling into a spray of jagged fragments, each shard glinting momentarily in smoky lamplight before bedding itself into the muddy street. There is subtle humour in the contrast. These women, whose own defiance takes the form of hidden trinkets and stolen moments, now listen to tales of thousands daring to raise their voices as one. If that sea of protest had its own whispered aside, it might be, "You think you've seen solidarity? Try facing down a battalion of constables." And yet, in their shared hush, Mary and her companions feel a frisson of kinship with those distant labourers. Sarah continues, her voice a steady ripple. The factory owners sent for reinforcements, special constables, they call them, armed with batons and bayonets. At this, a soft intake of breath passes through the group. Each woman imagines the glint of steel and the snap of oiled wood against flesh. But the fear is laced with a hint of admiration for those willing to risk such blows in pursuit of fair wages. As Sarah speaks, the parlour's ambient scents mingle with the gravity of her tale. The sweet lavender tucks itself into the background, while the coal fire undertones gain a sharper edge, echoing the strike's tension. The velvet curtains, recently fluffed and brushed, seem suddenly more fragile. Could they too be torn in the swell of unrest? Each detail in the room stands as a quiet witness to events unfolding beyond its walls. A second woman, Clara, adds her own fragment. I heard the local paper says the strikers sang hymns between chants, something about solidarity in toil. Mary smiles at the thought of factory whistles harmonizing with human voices, a curious choir amid the clang of machinery. The image is almost whimsical, as though the factories themselves pause to listen. Yet beneath the levity lies a serious note. When work becomes unbearable, music and protest can blend into a single, unstoppable refrain. In the parlour's hush, every creak of a floorboard and every swirl of dust motes seems to underscore Sarah's story. The women feel themselves tethered to those clamorous streets, their own whispers acting as ripples in a broader current of change. Even here, behind closed doors, they are participants in history, however indirectly. Finally, Sarah's voice softens as she concludes. They haven't decided yet whether to negotiate or march on City Hall. It could be peaceful, or it could turn ugly. A collective exhale follows, a silent acknowledgement of uncertainty. Then, as if on cue, the parlour's mistress, Mrs. Cartwright, appears at the doorway, her sharp gaze signalling the end of idle chatter. In an instant the women return to their duties, pockets of excitement and anxiety tucked away like contraband. And so, dear listener, let the murmurs of strikes and riots settle in your mind like distant thunder. Feel the resonance of collective footsteps, the hush of whispered slogans, and the fragile hope that arises when ordinary people dare to stand together. In that shared breath between fear and possibility, discover a quiet reflection on solidarity, one that binds Mary and her companions to every soul who has ever raised a voice for change. In the quiet aftermath of polishing and mending, the parlour's women gather once more, this time to revisit the tender remnants of affection tucked into the seams of their gowns. Mary reaches into a small hidden pocket and pulls out a faded scrap of paper, its edges worn smooth by constant handling. As she unfolds it, a faint creak of old fibers greets her fingertips, a delicate overture to the words held within. The paper is thin and yellowed, as though pressed too long under layers of fabric and time. Along one edge, the surface has softened to a near translucence, each delicate fibre visible like a miniature map of veins. In the soft lantern glow, you can almost see the ghosts of ink strokes, swirls of cursive that have bled and blotted where moisture lingered. Mary's thumb traces the jagged edge, noting how the tear follows the line of a secret fold, as if the paper remembered the contour of a clandestine embrace. She brings the note closer, inhaling the faintest perfume of tobacco and rosewater. These scents have seeped into the paper over countless nights, spent hidden beneath bosoms and between bodice boning. It is a whispered aroma, a breath that cannot be fully captured in words but lingers long enough to evoke both longing and amusement. Mary allows herself a small smile, imagining the writer's lungs exhaling that mixture of habit and hope. The words themselves are charmingly earnest. My dearest Mary, your laughter outshines candlelight, and in your eyes I find my only peace. But the ink has smudged where a careless finger passed, likely Mary's own, leaving a splotch that looks like an ink blot test for the heart. She squints, trying to decipher an overlapping flourish, and in that effort finds a moment's lightness. If the note could speak, it might chuckle at its own sentimentality. Yes, I was quite the poet at midnight. A neighbour, Clara, leans in and produces her own token. A tiny slip of paper, no larger than a postage stamp, folded into a neat triangle. This one bears the unmistakable scent of cigar smoke and the faintest spice, perhaps the occupant of a gentleman's club, now reflected in his choice of fragrance. Clara's eyes crinkle as she reads aloud a line. Your smile sets my soul ablaze, though I fear I may scorch your petticoat in the process. A soft ripple of laughter trickles through the circle, gentle enough not to disturb the parlor's delicate calm. Each woman holds her own tattered note aloft, comparing ink hues and handwriting styles as though appraising a private art collection. There is a kind of reverence in their examination. These scraps are more than messages. They are tokens of possibility, tiny bridges to lives lived beyond the brothel's threshold. The paper's texture, slightly waxy in places, papery thin in others, speaks of clandestine journeys through coat pockets, glove linings, and the secret folds of night. Mary's thoughts drift to the moment she first received her note. She remembers the soft brush of fabric as it slipped into her palm, the quick thrill of realizing someone had paused his evening to craft these words. She recalls pressing it to her cheek, feeling the warmth of his breath through its thin membrane. That memory is a tender counterpoint to the day's more practical labors, a reminder that even in shadowed corners, hope can take root. After a gentle pause, Mary refolds her note along its original creases, careful to preserve its integrity. She tucks it back into its hidden alcove, its edges peeking out just enough to promise its return. Clara follows suit, followed by the others, until each scrap is safely stowed away once more. The parlor exhales in unison, the collective breath of women who share both labor and longing. And so, dear listener, as you imagine these tattered love notes passing through Mary's hands, let their quiet romance steep in your thoughts. Feel the soft crinkle of folded paper, the weight of inked affection, and the gentle laughter that emerges when sentiment meets smudge. In this shared ritual, discover a slow, steady rhythm of hope, proof that even the smallest tokens can carry the grandest yearnings, folded neatly between gown layers and held close to the heart. In the quiet interlude between midday duties and evening calls, the women of Mrs. Cartwright's house gather around a chipped wooden table, each with a slice of stale bread crust pressed between her palms. These crusts' edges, torn from loaves long past their prime, are as hard as yesterday's regrets, but in their own austere way, remarkably sustaining. Imagine the crust's texture under your fingers, a brittle surface that gives just enough to reveal a tender crumb beneath, flecked with the parched remains of what once might have been soft dough. As Mary lifts her piece, she feels the slight resistance in her jaw when she takes her first cautious bite, the crust yielding in uneven fragments that tumble like tiny pebbles onto the table. Each chew releases a whisper of wheat and dust, a flavor so subdued it feels almost contemplative rather than nourishing. Around the table, women lean in close, voices hushed to a lullaby's whisper. Clara tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear and offers Mary a small smile. They say a crust like this can build your backbone, she notes wryly, tracing the crackled surface with a fingertip as though it were carved marble. In the cramped parlour, that remark lands softly, a spark of humour tucked into the day's fabric, an acknowledgement that these crusts, for all their austerity, are threaded with affection. As Mary nods, she notices Sarah drawing her own crust toward her, its jagged edge pressed against her palm. A single tear glints at Sarah's lashes, a quiet testament to last night's tribulation. Mary slides her crust across the table in gentle solidarity. "Mine's a bit thicker," she murmurs, "but you can have the heel if you like." The offer is more than gesture, it is the brothel's unspoken economy of care, where the smallest loaf can yield profound comfort. Sarah accepts with a soft sigh, switching her crust for Mary's. The exchange is performed with such tenderness it feels like a benediction. In that moment, the stale bread becomes a vessel for shared strength, a token not just of hunger sated, but of burdens lightened. Each woman grips her crust as though it were a lifebuoy, anchoring her to the group's steady warmth. Between bites, they trade confidences in the parlour's sheltered quiet. Mary listens as Sarah recounts a troubling encounter from the previous evening. A client's brusque refusal of conversation, a reminder that esteem can be as fleeting as the crust's crumb. Clara murmurs a consolation, brushing Sarah's cuff sleeve with her own, dabbing at the tear with the corner of her apron. It is a gesture as old as sisterhood, no words required, only the shared language of touch and proximity. The stale crusts shrink with each passing moment, their jagged surfaces giving way to smaller, more grateful crumbs. A hush settles, punctuated only by the gentle rasp of bread against teeth and the soft exhale of breath. The women's solidarity weaves itself into the parlour's faded wallpaper and worn floorboards, a tapestry of quiet support embroidered with every exchanged crumb. There is subtle competition here too, a rivalry, rendered gentle by context. Who can manage a crust's stiffness most deftly? Who can coax the greatest measure of flavour from the driest edge? In their soft smiles and playful glances, each woman stakes a claim to resilience, the ability to find sweetness in scarcity, to draw unity from shared meagreness. As the last crust fragments are swallowed, Clara taps her empty plate and sighs contentedly. "Well," she says, "I suppose tomorrow we'll face a fresh batch of trials, perhaps even fresher bread." Her tone is light, but it carries the steeled promise of endurance. Mary nods, wiping her mouth with the hem of her skirt, and together they rise from the table, fortified not just by crumbs, but by the knowledge that in this house, no one breaks alone. And so, dear listener, as you picture these women clustered over their humble repast, let their collective solace settle within you. Feel the firm resistance of the bread crust, taste its muted grain, and let each shared bit of comfort remind you that even the simplest offerings, stale though they may be, can bind us together in strength and compassion. As the afternoon light softens into a muted glow, the parlour takes on the air of a silent catwalk. A handful of women gather before a low wardrobe cabinet, its doors hung with silk gowns of every hue and pattern. Here, in the quiet hush between chores and clientele, a delicate rivalry unfolds, the gown contest, a subtle dance of elegance and economy. Imagine the gowns for a moment, one of shimmering dove-grey silk, its surface threaded with silver blossoms, another in deep emerald, cut on the bias, so that its folds cascade like water, a third in muted rose, the print of tiny vines giving it the look of an overgrown garden pressed into fabric. Each gown hangs with promise, whispering of candlelit parlour floors and the soft brush of gloved hands. Mary steps forward first, her fingers brushing the dove-grey silk. She feels its cool smoothness, the way the silver blossoms catch what little light filters through the curtained window. She lifts the gown from its hook and lets it fall around her, the hem grazing her ankles in a silent swirl. She runs her hand up to the fitted waist, noting where a previous seamstress has reinforced the stitching, evidence of both wear and care. In the corner, Clara eyes Mary's choice with practiced detachment. She considers the emerald gown next, lifting its skirt to test its fall, the silk sighs, pooling around her feet in a dark, iridescent circle. She twirls once, deliberately slow, and the fabric ripples like a pool disturbed by a single pebble. Clara smiles at her reflection, acknowledging the gown's promise without a word. A third figure, Sarah, hovers between them, torn between the rose-patterned silk and a simple black gown edged with ribbon. She lifts the rose silk and inhales its faint perfume, perhaps the last vestige of rosewater from a previous wearer. The scent mingles with the parlor's ambient coal smoke undertones, creating a heady melange of industry and romance. With a wistful sigh, she drapes the rose silk across her arm, as though weighing its merits against the black gown's quiet dignity. There is a gentle humour in their contest. None would admit to outright competition. Yet each woman's posture, each lingering glance, communicates unspoken hopes. Mary's fingers smooth out a wrinkle in her chosen gown, as if imparting a silent message. I too appreciate subtlety, dear friends. Clara's slight bob of the head suggests elegance need not draw attention, and Sarah's playful tug on the rose silk hints I believe in a little flair. The women take turns studying one another in the cracked mirror above the mantel. Each reflection offers a moment of camaraderie, an unspoken agreement that this contest is less about winning and more about celebrating their own mastery of transformation. In another house, such rivalry might breed resentment. Here, it breeds respect, admiration for a friend's sense of style, for her ability to coax the best from a length of silk, and for her courage in letting colour speak when silence might suffice. As the light continues to soften, the final selections are made. Mary secures the dove-grey silk around her shoulders, fastening its tiny hooks with care. Clara smooths the emerald gown's train one last time, and Sarah tucks the rose-patterned silk into place, smoothing a crease with a fingertip. Their choice is made, they step back from the wardrobe, standing together for a brief tableau, each woman a portrait of poise and intention. In that moment, the gown contest reaches its gentle crescendo. No trumpet sound, no victor is proclaimed. Instead, there is a shared nod, a soft murmur of approval, and the inevitable release of borrowed finery back to its hooks. The gowns return to their quiet vigil, awaiting the evening's calls and the soft echo of footsteps on polished floors. And so, dear listener, imagine yourself draping that silk around your shoulders, the smooth slide of fabric, the quiet confidence it imparts, and the subtle thrill of choice. In the calm of this parlour, let the gown contest's unspoken camaraderie remind you that elegance, like solidarity, is woven from the same delicate threads of care, respect, and just a touch of playful ambition. In the quiet lull after the gown contest, the parlour's atmosphere softens further as one woman settles behind another, fingers poised like gentle weavers ready at a loom. Mary offers her shoulders and head as a canvas, and Clara, with her nimble hands, begins the tender braiding session, an intimate ritual that transforms tangled strands into neat, deliberate plaits. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine Clara's fingers parting Mary's dark hair with measured care. Each section lifts easily at first, the pale dawn light catching the individual strands and illuminating subtle variations of chestnut and coal. Clara's fingertips brush against Mary's scalp in a slow, circular motion, a prelude to the braid itself, coaxing tension and stray knots into submission. The sensation is almost hypnotic, a gentle press, a soft glide, and Mary's breath deepens in response, matching the quiet cadence of the parlour's ticking clock. As Clara divides the hair into 3 equal sections, she pauses to brush each smooth with a small wooden comb. The comb's teeth click softly against Mary's neck, sending a ripple of faint echoes across the curtained room. That click, click, click could be the parlour itself tapping its foot, impatient to see the final design, yet content to bask in the slow ritual. If the comb could speak, it might whisper, "Steady now, perfection takes its time." Clara's fingers then begin the over and under dance of braiding, weaving the 3 sections together in a precise, rhythmic pattern. With each cross, the hair folds into itself, tighter and more controlled, until a single, elegant plait emerges. The movement is fluid, almost musical, though no instrument accompanies it, only the soft whoosh of silk gowns swaying on racks, and the occasional murmur of distant chores. The scent of Mary's hair oil drifts in the air, a blend of lavender and rosemary, faint but persistent, anchoring the ritual in freshness. That fragrance mingles with the parlour's existing bouquet, hints of coal fire and polished brass, creating a layered perfume that feels both grounding and refined. It's as though the very atmosphere participates in the braiding, lending its own notes to the quiet symphony. Observing the process, one might notice the subtle humour Clara shows in her expression, a slight lift of an eyebrow at a particularly obstinate knot, a soft chuckle when she accidentally tugs a bit too firmly. Mary offers an exaggerated wince, prompting a shared smile, In that exchange, the bond between them solidifies. This braid is not just a hairstyle, but a testament to friendship's small comforts. As Clara continues, she weaves in tiny embellishments, a slender ribbon tucked discreetly at the braid's base, a few loose curls left to frame the neck. Each choice is deliberate, a whisper of personality amid the day's demands. The plait grows longer, its weight settling gently against Mary's back, a sign that she is ready for the evening's performances, both graceful and poised. When the final cross is secured with a bit of ribbon, Clara lifts the braid slightly to ensure it falls in a perfect arc. Mary tilts her head, the motion causing the plait to sway like a pendulum marking time. The two women share a quiet moment. Clara brushes a stray strand back into place, and Mary sighs in satisfaction, her shoulders relaxing for the first time that day. In that sigh lies the true power of the tender braiding session. For a few minutes, the world outside fades to background noise. The worries of tomorrow's demands, the strain of last night's encounters, even the city's distant clamour, all melt into the hush of friendly fingertips at work. The simple act of braiding becomes a sanctuary, a space where solidarity is woven strand by strand. And so, dear listener, imagine receiving such a braid yourself. The gentle separation of hair, the tactile rhythm of weaving, the subtle snip of a ribbon to finish. Feel your own shoulders release their tension, your breath find an unhurried pace. In that shared ritual of care, discover the delicate artistry that binds these women together, and let its steady rhythm carry you toward your next moment of reflection and rest. As twilight threads its soft gloaming through the parlor's tall windows, Mary stands before the wardrobe, a silent arbiter of identity hidden behind polished wood doors. Here begins the silk versus velvet debate, a quiet duel that will shape both her form and her mood for the evening's calls. First, her hand drifts to a crimson silk skirt, its surface cool and luminous. Mary lifts it from its hook, allowing the fabric to slide through her fingers like liquid fire. Feel the silk's effortless fluidity, how it whispers against her palm, catching stray rays of fading light and turning them into embers. She drapes the skirt around her waist, the smooth weight pooling at her ankles in a gentle, undulating wave. In that moment she imagines herself bathed in candlelight, each step setting ripples of red across the parlor floor, an echo of warmth and allure. Yet, as the silk settles, Mary turns her gaze to its rival, a velvet overdress of deep, muted aubergine. She slides the velvet from its hanger and inhales its rich, faintly musty scent, a perfume of lanolin and centuries of silent admiration. The much heavier weight of velvet presses against her arm as she holds it, a tangible hush that seems to absorb sound. In her hand, the fabric feels both regal and protective, as though it could shield her from the world's keenest gazes. She drapes the velvet over her other arm, noting the way its pile shifts under her fingertips. Run your hand slowly across its surface and you'll feel how it rises and falls, catching the light in velvet shadows and highlights. These undulations remind Mary of nighttime's own ebb and flow moments when the world recedes into silhouette, and only the most deliberate shapes remain. There is subtle joking between Mary and her own reflection. She imagines the silk inviting her with a soft, coquettish lilt. Choose me, and you'll shine. Meanwhile, the velvet offers a more stoic promise. Wear me, and you'll be seen, or not, precisely as you wish. If fabrics could banter, silk would flutter its hem, and velvet would simply arch an eyebrow. Mary lifts the silk again and holds it up to her waist. She imagines the skirt swish as she moves, how it might draw a client's gaze, fleeting but insistent. The colour seems to pulse with a life of its own, daring onlookers to come closer, to feel its warmth. Yet she recalls the more practical ballet of evening ahead, guests arriving, chairs sliding back, the gentle clink of teacups. Would the silk's lightness serve her well in that choreography, or would its brightness betray every subtle step? Then Mary turns back to the velvet. She slips her arm through its sleeve, and allows the body of the overdress to fall in a soft cascade. Immediately she feels cocooned. The heavier folds envelop her in a whispered embrace, their weight reminding her to stand tall, to command space without the need for flamboyant gestures. The velvet's deep hue seems to still her breath, encouraging a more measured approach to conversation and gesture. In this debate, Mary considers not only the fabric's textures, but the stories they tell. The silk speaks of youth and vivacity, the social season's bright promises. The velvet, in contrast, murmurs of discretion and depth, of whispered confidences in candlelit parlors. Both have their merits. Both could shape her persona in subtle yet profound ways. After a deliberate pause, Mary lifts the silk one final time, then gently folds it back onto its hook. She steps fully into the velvet overdress, easing its weight onto her shoulders. There is a soft sigh of satisfaction as the velvet's hush settles around her like a silent announcement. In that quiet moment, the debate finds its resolution. For tonight, she chooses shadow over flame, depth over dazzle. And so, dear listener, imagine standing before your own wardrobe, at Twilight's cusp, feeling the cool slide of silk and the plush hush of velvet. Let the fabric's contrasts guide you, light and shadow, allure and reserve, until you find the garment that best reflects the self you wish to present. In that choice, you too embrace the art of becoming, carried forward on the calm, steady rhythm of mid-evening transformation. With the velvet overdress settled around her shoulders, Mary turns her attention to what lies beneath, the layers of petticoats that will lend structure and poise to her silhouette. Imagine a soft stack of starched cotton and fine linen draped over a wooden chair, each petticoat its own testament to craftsmanship and endurance. She lifts the first layer, a crisp white linen petticoat, edged with delicate lace, and shakes it gently, watching it billow like an exhalation. The fabric sighs as it unfolds, releasing a faint whisper of appliance starch and soft cotton. Mary guides it up her legs, feeling the cool, smooth surface against her skin. With measured care, she adjusts the waist, ensuring the petticoat sits even all around. A subtle tug here, a delicate smoothing there, and the layer settles into a gentle dome at her hip. Next comes a second petticoat, slightly heavier and embroidered with tiny hand-stitched flowers. Mary slips it on, noting how its modest weight contrasts with the airy linen beneath. With her palms flat against the fabric, she smooths each swirl and fold, coaxing out any creases that might wrinkle mid-parlor. The rustle is soft yet insistent, a percussion so gentle it might be mistaken for the fluttering of moth wings in a muted ballroom. Pause for a moment to savor that sound, a hushed rustle, a gentle swish. It frames Mary's form with intention, each layer adding a new note in this quiet serenade of fabric and form. If the petticoats could speak, they might murmur, "Stand tall, my dear," or "Let us bear your weight with grace." Their voices are subtle, but their guidance is steadfast. Mary proceeds to the third layer, a petticoat of fine taffeta, glossy and faintly resistant to the touch. It's the boldest of the three, its crisp rustle sharper, its shape more pronounced. She slips it on and inhales the faint scent of polished silk, mixed with room dust, a reminder that even the most luxurious garments share the parlor's humble ambience. The taffeta's rustle is a staccato tap, like cautious footsteps on polished marble, echoing the parlor's expectation of elegance and restraint. With all three layers in place, Mary takes a breath and runs her hands over the ensemble. The transitions between fabrics are seamless, cool linen into soft cotton, into crisp taffeta, each layer building upon the last. She smooths the side seams, ensuring no unexpected bulges or dips. A stray thread catches her finger, and she plucks it with a delicate tug, an act of precision that underscores the petticoat's silent dialogue with its wearer. Observe the interplay of textures, the linen's crisp freshness, the cotton's quiet resilience, the taffeta's poised luster. Each layer contributes to Mary's form, sculpting her silhouette into the desired shape. An hourglass softened at the edges, capable of both commanding presence and gentle allure. The rustle of petticoats becomes a tactile reminder of body and cloth moving in harmony. In the mirror's reflection, Mary surveys the result. The petticoats create a foundation for her gown, promising that each sweep of the velvet overdress will fall in calculated folds, each movement deliberate and precise. She tilts her hips, testing the sway, and the layers respond in unison. A slow, rhythmic rustle that feels almost conversational. "Yes," they seem to say, "we've got your back." There's subtle humor in the domesticity of this transformation. Here is a woman surrounded by layers of cotton and silk, engaged in the serious business of shaping her own image, all while the world outside buzzes with coal fires and cobblestone damp. Yet within these walls, petticoat precision is paramount, a reminder that identity can be crafted stitch by stitch, layer by layer. Finally, Mary smooths the outermost skirt over the petticoats, allowing the fabric to cascade in perfect folds, the rustle softening into a gentle hush. She stands tall, shoulders back, chest open, transformed by petticoat precision into both canvas and artist, her form as carefully composed as any painting. And so, dear listener, imagine layering your own petticoats, the cool linen, the soft cotton, the crisp taffeta. Feel the subtle cacophony of rustles around you, the gentle encouragement each layer offers, and the steady rhythm of intention that guides your posture. In that harmony of cloth and body, discover the art of self-construction, a calm, measured prelude to the evening's unfolding story. Beneath the velvet overdress and the precise petticoats lies a realm few ever glimpse, the hidden pockets and secrets stitched into each garment. Mary stands before the wardrobe as twilight settles, her fingers tracing the seams of her chosen attire as though reading Braille. In those quiet lines of stitching lie discreet ledgers of bargains struck, favours owed, and the currency of survival. Imagine your fingertips brushing along a seam barely wider than a thread. The fabric yields ever so slightly to the touch, hinting at a hollow just behind it. Mary locates a tiny slit, no more than an inch long, its edges reinforced with nearly invisible stitches. With careful precision she pries it open, revealing a narrow pocket lined with soft cotton. It is here that a single copper penny rests, its surface worn smooth by years of handling and secrecy. The penny's weight is light but significant. Mary lifts it between her thumb and forefinger, noting how it glints in the muted lamplight. It is a testament to a late-night exchange, a hush-hush transaction for extra coal in the kitchen, or perhaps a small loan from a sympathetic patron. That solitary coin carries a world of tacit agreements, each one preserved in this tiny alcove of cloth. Next, Mary moves her hand to another seam higher along the waistline. She finds a second pocket, this one slightly larger and pleated to accommodate folded scraps of paper. Pulling open the slit, she uncovers a crumpled note, no bigger than a postage stamp. The parchment is stiff with age, its edges burned in places, and the ink has faded to a pale sepia. Yet the words remain legible. "Meet me at midnight, by the river's bend." A soft smile curves Mary's lips. That promise, now tucked away, once held the potential of escape, or at least a stolen hour of companionship. Each discovery brings a flicker of warmth to Mary's chest. The pockets themselves are feats of ingenuity, stitched invisibly into the garment's lining, their presence betrayed only by a subtle bulge or a slight give in the fabric's grain. If the velvet could speak, it might whisper, "Here lies hope," or "Here lies caution," depending on which pocket one probes. But the velvet remains reticent, leaving Mary alone with her quiet delight in these clandestine compartments. She continues her exploration, finding pockets at the hip, designed for small trinkets, a single mother-of-pearl button filched from a discarded cloak, or a lock of ribbon that once tied at a client's coat cuff. Each object becomes a chapter in the house's unspoken ledger, recorded in stitches rather than ink. When Mary slips these treasures back into their hidden homes, she performs a silent act of preservation, guarding memories and necessities with the same care she once reserved for the most delicate silk. There is subtle humour in the very notion of fashion serving as ledger. One might imagine the gown winking in complicity. "Yes, hide your secrets here. I will keep them safe under layers of fluff and finery." And so the garments become more than tools of seduction. They become trusted confidants, bearing witness to whispered plans and private reassurances. Once satisfied that every pocket holds its due, Mary smooths the outer velvet layer, erasing any sign of her rummaging. The seams align flawlessly, and the dress returns to its outward role of silent elegance. She gives herself a final once-over in the mirror, ensuring that no hidden bulge betrays her tiny vaults of coins and notes. As she steps away from the wardrobe, Mary carries more than a gown. She carries the weight of her own resourcefulness. The hidden pockets remind her that even in a world determined to confine her, she retains the power to conceal, to allocate, and to remember. And so, dear listener, imagine your own fingers exploring the seams of an unseen garment, discovering the secret chambers where necessity and hope reside. Feel the gentle thrill of each discovery, and let the slow, steady rhythm of hidden pockets guide you into a deeper appreciation of the quiet artistry that sustains both cloth and spirit. As twilight deepens and shadows lengthen across the parlor, Mary settles before a small, cracked mirror, her final canvas before stepping into public view. In one hand, she holds a tin of white lead powder, its surface etched with delicate scrollwork. In the other, a slender glass atomizer filled with rosewater perfume. Together they form an alchemical duet, transforming her private visage into a poised professional mask. Drawing a soft linen puff from the tin, Mary dips it lightly into the powder. At first contact, she feels the slightest tickle, a whisper of fine particles against her fingertips. The powder itself is weightless, almost ethereal, like the dust of crushed pearls. She brings the puff to her cheek, and, with a gentle pat, begins to spread the pale veil. Each press of powder evens her complexion, smoothing the map of small imperfections that daylight has revealed. The faintest shadow of a worry line, a trace of yesterday's exhaustion under her eyes. Inhale the scent of raw minerals, chalky, neutral, hinting at distant quarries and ancient artistry. Exhale, the transformation begins. As the powder settles into a quiet hush, Mary's reflection in the mirror flickers between two selves. One, the woman of private complexities, the other, a serene figure of anonymity and allure. She moves the puff in soft circles, each rotation a deliberate erasure of the personal in favor of the performative. There is subtle humor in the ritual. Mary imagines her powdered face as a blank page awaiting the flourish of ink, or perhaps a silent movie actress stepping into the flickering glow of candlelit projectors. "Fear not," she might whisper to her own reflection. "I will not startle you with my true colors tonight." And yet, the powder is more than disguise. It is armor. Under its light dusting lies a shield that both invites attention and deflects intrusion. With the white lead firmly in place, Mary sets the puff aside and reaches for the rosewater atomizer. Its glass body, tinted faintly pink, glints in the parlor's lamplight. She twists the nozzle and, with a measured squeeze, sends a fine mist arching through the air, tiny droplets that land like gentle dew upon her skin. The rosewater's scent blossoms immediately, a soft floral whisper that weaves through the chalky hush of powder, infusing it with warmth and life. Close your eyes and inhale deeply. The perfume's notes bloom on your tongue, like petals unfurling, each bearing the memory of garden blooms and sun-warmed mornings. It is an invisible announcement of refinement, a declaration that within this powder-white mask beats a heart accustomed to nuance and grace. The rosewater settles into her pores, leaving behind a hint of dew and a promise of hidden depths beneath the practiced facade. Mary allows herself a subtle smile as she observes her reflection. The two halves, white lead's matte certainty and rosewater's shimmering softness, united in harmonious tension. She imagines stepping into her parlor attire, velvet and silk framing the powdered perfection of her visage, each element reinforcing the boundary between Mary, the private woman, and Mary, the consummate professional. Before leaving the mirror, she gives her cheeks a final whisper of powder, tapping away any excess with the puff's edge. A stray flake drifts to the floor, joining the motes of dust that perform their own quiet ballet in the parlor light. In that gentle descent, Mary sees the fleeting nature of her whole transformation, and she embraces it, knowing that by daybreak, this alchemy will give way once more to the self she keeps beyond the wardrobe doors. And so, dear listener, let the soft hush of white lead and the gentle bloom of rosewater carry you toward your own moment of reflection. Feel the fine powder settling on your skin, the floral mist drifting around you, and the calm assurance that comes from wearing, if only for a little while, the carefully crafted mask of intention and grace. As Mary settles before the mirror, the final strokes of her transformation draw near. In her hands lies a small, ivory comb, its teeth fine and precise, while before her, a cascade of dark hair tumbles over her shoulders like a shadowed waterfall. Here begins the ritual of hair framing the gaze, a measured choreography of stray strands and careful waves that will craft a halo and a mask in equal measure. Imagine the texture of Mary's hair under your fingertips, soft yet resilient, each strand carrying the faintest whisper of rosemary oil and warm hearth smoke. She lifts a section at her temple, pinching it gently between forefinger and thumb, and guides it into a deliberate S-curve, catching the light in a subtle gleam. With the comb's teeth, she teases the wave into perfect shape, smoothing any errant frizz into place. The movement feels almost like playing a violin, slow, deliberate, coaxing hidden beauty into bloom. Inhale. The earthy scent of rosemary mingles with hints of rosewater still clinging to her skin. Exhale. The tension in Mary's shoulders eases, replaced by a focused calm. Each gentle tug of the comb against her hair reverberates softly, a low murmur in the parlor's hushed evening air. As she shapes the wave, she allows herself a fleeting thought. If her hair could talk, perhaps it would sigh. Ah, at last, some attention. Or tease. Try not to tangle me again, dear. Once the first wave is set, Mary repeats the motion on the opposite side, creating a gentle mirror image. The two waves arc around her eyes, framing them like the curved arms of an ornate gilded frame. In the mirror, her gaze takes on new depth. The hair's dark curves draw the eye inward, amplifying the subtleties of her expression. It is as though a sculptor's hand has distilled her features to their most essential lines. Lips poised, eyes alert, the space around her softened by the hair's embrace. With each successive wave, Mary's fingers find new stray strands, those rebellious tendrils that escape the earlier braiding session, and coax them into line. The comb clicks against the hair's length, a staccato rhythm that punctuates the parlor's broader hush. If that click could speak, it might murmur, order restored, or lament, another knot here, must we? Yet in Mary's gentle ministrations, even the most wayward lock submits to quiet harmony. Between waves, Mary pauses to admire her own reflection. The hair, now shaped into a halo of precise ripples, catches the lamplight in soft arcs, each curve a testament to deliberate artistry. There is a subtle humor in the process. She recalls mornings when she rushed through these steps, leaving stray curls rebelliously free. Tonight, she thinks with a wry smile. Perhaps they felt neglected. In that moment of levity, the ritual shifts from mere preparation to an act of self-care, a conversation between Mary and her mirror image. Finally, she tucks the last wave behind her ear and secures it with a pin of polished tortoiseshell. The pin's smooth curve slides into place with a soft click, anchoring the hair's shape. A few final strokes of the comb smooth any remaining ripples, and Mary leans back to take in the result. The waves have done their work. They frame her gaze, drawing attention to the dark depths of her eyes, while the hair's halo offers a subtle mask, hinting at secrets and stories unspoken. In the half-lit parlor, Mary's reflection stands poised, her hair both crown and curtain. The halo invites admiration, the mask maintains mystery, and in that delicate balance lies the true power of hair framing the gaze, a quiet enchantment wrought through slow, intentional gestures. So, dear listener, imagine your own hands tracing those gentle S-curves, comb in hand, molding stray strands into artful waves. Feel the soft tug of hair, the gentle click of comb teeth, and the subtle transformation as your features come into sharper, more refined focus. In that calm ceremony of hair framing the gaze, discover both the halo that surrounds you and the mask that guards you, woven together with each tender, reflective stroke. The parlor's single candle flickers atop a wrought iron stand, its flame trembling like a small spirit in the gentle draught. Mary steps before a tall mirror, its glass cracked in a spiderweb pattern that catches the candlelight and scatters it into soft fragments across the room. She breathes in the mingled scents of rosewater, lavender, and coal smoke, then exhales slowly, settling into this moment of quiet appraisal. Her reflection peers back at her through fractured glass, every shard offering a slightly different angle on the same face. In one sliver, she sees the evened pallor of white lead powder. In another, the rosewater's blush catches like dew on a petal. The cracked lines running across the mirror could be mistaken for delicate wrinkles, but Mary knows they are older, traces of a time when this room's secrets were younger and harsher. She raises a hand to a stray curl at her temple, the dark wave she framed moments before. Her fingertips find the soft ribbon of hair, and she tucks it into place, smoothing its curve so it falls in an unbroken S along her cheekbone. The movement is slow, deliberate, each adjustment a silent conversation between persona and spirit. If her hair could speak, it might sigh, "Yes, that's more like it," before drifting back into obedient stillness. Mary shifts her shoulders and glances down at the velvet collar of her overdress. The fabric sits slightly askew, one side dipping lower than the other. With a gentle tug, she straightens it, smoothing the pile, so it rests flush against her neck. The faint rustle of velvet punctuates the room, a soft percussion that underscores the mirror's silent scrutiny. Her motions are unhurried, each small correction echoing the parlor's unspoken vow of perfection. A stray fleck of white powder clings to her chin. With a practiced pinch, Mary brushes it away, flicking it into the dim corner, where the wallpaper's faded pattern will hide it. She allows herself a wry thought. If only her younger self could see her now, powdered like a porcelain doll, yet poised like a seasoned actress. In the cracked mirror's fractured light, she is both canvas and curator of her own image. Leaning in, Mary examines her eyes next. She watches the subtle shimmer of candlelight dance across the pupils, searching for any glint of fatigue. If she spots a shadow that seems too deep, she blinks deliberately, coaxing alertness back into her gaze. The mirror's jagged reflections remind her that perfection is a mosaic of small victories rather than a singular achievement. The hush of the parlor deepens as Mary straightens one last curl and smooths a final wrinkle in her gown's bodice. She steps back, folding her arms across her waist, and regards herself with both detachment and quiet satisfaction. In this fractured mirror, she sees a woman who has become her own creation, composed, elegant, and ready to step into the evening's subtle performance. There is subtle humor in this concluding act. Mary pictures the candle's flame gossiping with the glass cracks. "See that curl? Might ruin the whole effect." And the mirror in retort might quip, "Shh, let her finish." In that imagined exchange lies the spirit of the ritual, an understanding that every slight imperfection lends character, and that true allure arises from the balance of intention and chance. Finally, Mary offers her reflection a small nod, as though acknowledging a partnership formed through powder, perfume, petticoats, and hair. The candlelight flickers in agreement, sending a final shimmer across the shards. Satisfied that spirit and persona now walk in step, Mary turns away from the mirror. The parlor resumes its quiet vigil, ready to usher her into the evening's soft embrace. And so, dear listener, imagine your own final mirror inspection. The glow of candlelight, the careful adjustment of hair and collar, the mindful removal of stray powder. Let each delicate gesture guide you toward the seamless alignment of your own intent and presence, carried forward on the calm, reflective rhythm of self-care and preparation. With her transformation complete, Mary steps lightly into the parlor's soft glow, where the evening's first guest is already expected. Here begins the final and perhaps most delicate stroke of her metamorphosis, the rehearsed laugh. It is an artful secretion of warmth, a sound carefully calibrated to comfort, to distract, and to veil the day's true toll on her spirit. Imagine the parlor's hush settling around Mary like a velvet curtain. In the corner, Mrs. Cartwright stands with a poised expectancy, and beyond the half-open door, a client waits. Mary positions herself just so, turning her shoulders slightly and planting her feet in a graceful arc. Then, with the faintest intake of breath, she primes her laughter, as one might prime a delicate instrument. The first notes emerge slowly, soft and measured, like a lullaby set to a gentle pulse. The sound is neither sharp nor abrupt. Rather, it unfurls in a controlled crescendo, the way a ribbon of silk might ripple free from its spool. Mary allows her lips to curve upward, just enough to suggest genuine mirth, without risking excess. Behind that smile, she draws upon memories of actual laughter, long ago moments before life became a sequence of calculated performances. If one listened closely, they might detect an echo of youthful levity, but Mary ensures it remains only a whisper, never overtaking the persona she now inhabits. Each rehearsal of that laugh has taught her its precise timing. She tests it once, letting the sound fall into the room's corners, then again adjusting the pitch to a gentle alto. Inhale, anticipation. Exhale, the laugh releases. Observe how it spreads warmth across the parlor, softening its shadows, inviting the client to relax. It is a carefully crafted tool, neither too loud to alarm nor too quiet to go unnoticed. There is a subtle humor in the irony of rehearsed laughter. One might picture Mary backstage, practicing into a small hand mirror. Ha ha ha. Each syllable weighed for maximum comfort and minimal exhaustion. Yet, even as she perfects the sound, she steers clear of irony. The laugh must remain earnest, a gift to her listener rather than a reminder of her own weariness. Tonight's gentleman steps forward, extending a gloved hand. Mary's lips part in that practiced curve, and her laugh greets him like measured currency, immediately putting him at ease. He chuckles in return, a softer, less polished echo, and for a moment, the parlor fills with a shared warmth that feels almost spontaneous. But Mary remains mindful of the laugh's origin, deliberate, rehearsed, her silent promise to sustain the evening's delicate intimacy. Behind that laugh lies Mary's true fatigue, hours of restless sleep, the ache of her limbs, the weight of each coin counted and stowed. Yet she allows none of that to spill over. Instead, the laugh becomes a mask that both protects her and serves her client. It is a bridge between two worlds, the private woman and her public persona, and it must remain seamless, its edges invisible. As the conversation unfurls, Mary intersperses her laugh at precise intervals, amid a witty anecdote, at the gentleman's half-hearted joke, and again when she offers a gentle retort. Each sound is a buoy, keeping the exchange afloat and carrying the client toward comfort and confidences. The parlor's candlelight dances across her powdered cheeks as the laugh settles into the room's rhythm, a lullaby for two souls adrift in a sea of social expectation. When the client finally rises to depart, Mary offers one last, light laugh, an understated chime of farewell. It lingers in the parlor's air even after the door closes. Inhale, the hush returns. Exhale, the echo of warmth fades, and Mary, ever the attentive performer, allows herself a private smile of relief. And so, dear listener, imagine practicing your own rehearsed laughter, the soft inhalation before sound, the gentle release that neither forces nor falters. Let its measured cadence guide you toward a state of calm reflection, even as you honor the hidden resilience that supports every delicate performance we offer to the world. As the candle's flame flickers against the parlor's high ceiling, Mary retreats briefly to a small side table where a slender leather-bound notebook lies open. Within its pages, in careful inked script, rests a witty French anecdote she has been refining for days. Tonight, she intends to dust it with the latest bit of local gossip, a carefully chosen garnish that will give her client just enough intellectual sparkle to feel both entertained and comforted. Imagine the scene. The notebook's pages, thin as onion skin, shiver slightly in the draught from the half-open window. Mary's fingertips skim the margin where she has penciled a pronunciation cue. Plus ça change, she whispers the phrase to herself, testing the French lilt on her tongue. The words roll out soft and smooth. Plus ça change, and she smiles at their elegance. In that moment she senses the anecdote's promise, a glimpse of Parisian salon, a whisper of wit that feels both exotic and inviting. Beside the notebook, a small sachet of lavender perches like a silent partner, its pale floral scent mingling with the richer notes of rosewater still clinging to Mary's skin. Inhale, the memory of Provençal fields. Exhale, the expectancy of an attentive listener. These scents weave into the parlor's ambience, setting the stage for her carefully curated words. She closes the notebook and tucks it under her arm, then moves toward the wardrobe where a folded scrap of newspaper waits. Extracted from this morning's edition, it bears the scandal of a local baker's apprentice caught smuggling town council decrees into the market square. Mary unfolds the paper, smoothing its edges with practiced care. The headlines, Yeoman's Folly, are printed in bold serif type, their black ink still faintly damp. She reads the key details aloud in a single exhalation. He claimed it was for the greater good of pastry prices, she notes, a soft chuckle escaping her lips. This is her conversational flourish, a tiny nugget of civic intrigue that will lend earthy colour to her French-tinged tale. She imagines slipping it seamlessly into conversation. Speaking of change, mademoiselle, she'll begin, then recount the anecdote before adding, and did you hear how that baker's apprentice tried to legislate his way to better croissants? The juxtaposition of refined anecdote and local absurdity will cast her as both cultured and connected, a companion who knows the world beyond these doors, and the street just outside them. Mary closes the wardrobe and stands before the crack in the mirror, the candlelight dancing across her powdered cheeks. She tests the anecdote's delivery, soft lilt to suggest education, a light smile to disarm. Then she practices the gossip's timing, delivered just as she folds her hands over a client's, an afterthought that feels spontaneous. The room is silent, but for her hushed rehearsals, a quiet symphony of self-preparation. There is subtle humour in the exercise. Mary imagines her own reflection rolling its eyes. Here we go again, Miss Mary, licensed wordsmith. Yet even that imagined reproach is a gentle reminder that mastery lies in balance. Too much polish feels contrived, too much vulgarity feels coarse. Her notes, scribbled margins and all, are the scaffolding over which she layers authenticity. Satisfied, Mary tucks the newspaper scrap into her bodice's hidden pocket, one of those secret pouches she knows so well. The notebook slips back onto the side table, perched like a lover of quiet confidences. She straightens her posture, taking one final, measured breath. Inhale, readiness. Exhale, calm resolve. When the client arrives, Mary ushers him in with practiced grace. As conversation meanders through pleasantries, she waits for the gentle lean of his shoulder, the curious lift of an eyebrow. Then, in a single, fluid motion, she lets her rehearsed laughter settle, follows with the French anecdote, and dusts it with the baker's apprentice scandal, her words unfolding like a shared secret. And so, dear listener, imagine yourself leafing through your own mental notebook, testing each phrase, each local detail, until your voice carries both elegance and warmth. Let the slow rhythm of rehearsal, the soft rustle of paper, and the mingled scents of lavender and ink guide you toward a moment of connection, where conversation itself becomes an artful performance, soothing and enlivening in equal measure. The parlor door stands before Mary like a velvet curtain waiting to be drawn aside. Beyond it lies the stage where her transformation completes itself, a place of measured conversation, candlelit coaxing, and the soft echo of footsteps on polished wooden floors. For a moment she pauses just behind the threshold, drawing in a deliberate breath as the room's ambient sounds and scents gather around her like an audience waiting in hushed anticipation. Inhale. The subtle hush of velvet curtains, stirring in the evening air. Exhale. A soft chorus of coal fire, undertones drifting from the hearth. Mary feels her lungs bloom with these mingled notes, a grounding symphony that steadies her heart. She smooths her skirt in a single, fluid gesture, ensuring the hem falls in precise folds over her petticoated frame. Her posture, until now only partially revealed, snaps into place, shoulders down and back, spine straight, chin lifted just so. It is the posture of one who commands space without demanding it. Her fingertips graze the doorframe, its painted surface cool under her palm, before she releases it. In that brief touch, she feels a pulse of resolve. This barrier between her private sanctuary and the parlor's gentle glare is hers to cross. She straightens once more, aligning her reflection in the mirror's fractured light, and offers herself a small, knowing smile. This is the final act of metamorphosis, stepping into character. With a soft click, Mary pushes the door open. The hinges respond with a muted groan, as though offering its own welcome. After you. She steps across the threshold, her movements deliberate and unhurried. Feel the velvet of her overdress brushing past the door's edge, the slight rustle underscoring each footfall. Each step is measured, no hurried scurry here, only the confident glide of someone accustomed to holding the room's soft focus. Inside, the parlor's light dances on polished floorboards, tracing a warm path before her. The candle on the mantel flickers in time with her heartbeat, casting shadows that bow and rise as she moves. Mary's voice, when she speaks, carries a calibrated lilt, soft enough to soothe, clear enough to command attention. "Good evening," she murmurs, each syllable sliding smoothly into the room's hush. Even the silence seems to lean in, eager to catch every nuance. There is subtle humor in this threshold crossing. Mary imagines the doorway addressing her like an old friend. "Well done, you've made it." She returns the thought with a silent nod. "Thank you, do keep my secret." This imagined exchange lightens her mood, reminding her that beneath the performance lies a woman who knows these rituals intimately, whose confident veneer is as much shield as it is stagecraft. The client's gloved hand extends in greeting, and Mary inclines her head slightly, eyes meeting his with just enough warmth to invite trust. Her shoulders remain squared, but her voice softens further, weaving the silk of her persona into the evening's opening gambit. In that moment she is neither fully Mary of the attic, nor entirely the polished companion she portrays. She is the seamless blend of both, poised gracefully at the intersection of vulnerability and control. Feel the parlor's ambient warmth brush against her exposed neck, the faint scent of rosewater trailing in her wake. Her shoes, silent on the board, carry her toward the hearth, where she steps deliberately to cast her reflection in its dancing fires. There is a private satisfaction in knowing she has mastered this crossing, that her preparation from mattress to mirror has distilled into this one steady stride. As Mary settles into her role, companion, confidant, performer, the threshold behind her fades into silence, its promise fulfilled. The parlor's gentle glow envelops her, and she offers the client her practiced smile, the lullaby of her rehearsed laughter, and carefully chosen anecdotes already poised on her lips. And so, dear listener, imagine yourself pausing before your own threshold door closed, audience waiting, transformation complete. Inhale, the world's steady rhythm. Exhale your own calm resolve. Step forward with measured grace, posture aligned, voice softened, and allow the room to receive the persona you've so carefully crafted. In that gentle crossing, discover the quiet power of thresholds, where private self and public role merge into harmonious presence. The parlor's door closes with a subdued click, and the day's final visitors slip into the night. In the aftermath, Mary stands before a small wooden plank laid across two low stools, her makeshift counting table. Here, in the gentle hush that follows evening's bustle, she gathers the night's earnings, a small heap of copper pennies and silver shillings, each coin a discreet echo of the conversations, confidences, and comforts she has exchanged. Picture the coins in your mind's eye, the copper ones warm-hued and mottled by time, their surfaces etched with Queen Victoria's profile, resplendent even in tiny metal form. The silver shillings, cooler to the touch, gleam with a muted luster, their rims still crisp from the mint's final stamp. Mary's fingers hover over the pile, and with a deliberate inhale, she prepares for the ritual of reckoning. She lifts the first copper piece and places it on the plank. It clicks, a bright, solitary note that resonates in the parlor's quiet. The sound is at once stark and comforting, a clear marker, one coin more toward rent, toward food, toward tomorrow's small reprieve. She brushes aside a stray crumb from the day's stale crust, residue of earlier bread crust consolations, then lifts another penny, aligning it beside its twin. The clinks form a slow, methodical rhythm, each one a testament to endurance. Next, Mary gathers the silver shillings. Their weight feels substantial in her palm, as though each coin carries a sliver of her own dignity and debt. She lays a shilling beside the row of pennies. The silver's click is deeper, more sonorous, echoing against the plank, with a steadiness that underscores its value. In that single note, Mary hears the promise of small luxuries, a night's lodging paid in full, a warm basin of washwater, perhaps one extra pinch of lavender sachet under her quilt. The coins accumulate in tidy rows, copper and silver, segregated by value and promise. Mary counts aloud in a soft, measured voice. 1, 2, 3. The digits slip from her lips in a gentle litany. With each count, the room's shadows deepen, as though time itself responds to this evening's tally. Inhale, the culmination of whispered laughter and shared confidences. Exhale, the quiet knowledge of survival. There is subtle humor in the ritual. Mary imagines the coins gossiping among themselves, the coppers boasting of their ubiquity, the silvers preening at their shine. We may be small, they might chime in unison, but we keep the world turning. In their metallic voices, Mary hears both pride and resignation, a reminder that her own worth is counted in fractions of a shilling, yet each piece carries unspoken stories of resilience. As she reaches the final coin, Mary pauses, palms hovering above the rows. She glances at the total, enough for tomorrow's needs, with perhaps a single shilling to spare. That extra piece feels like a hidden blessing, a shard of hope tucked among the more routine figures. She nods quietly to herself, acknowledging the balance of survival and sacrifice that each night demands. With a soft sweep of her hand, Mary gathers the copper coins first, smoothing them into a small leather pouch. The rustle of worn leather adds another texture to the parlor's soundscape. Then she lifts the silver shillings, their cooler weight reminding her of both the night's demands and its rewards. Each coin slips into its own section of the pouch, the leather's soft folds cradling them like treasured confidences. Finally, Mary fastens the pouch's drawstring and tucks it into one of her gown's hidden pockets, one of those secret chambers she knows so well. The act is both practical and symbolic. She secures her earnings against tomorrow's uncertainties and protects the ledger of her own worth beneath layers of velvet and lace. And so, dear listener, imagine yourself in Mary's place, the soft clink of copper and silver, the slow tally of coins under muted candlelight, and the steady breath that accompanies each count. Let the rhythm of 1, 2, 3 guide you toward a calm reflection on the value of endurance, the dignity in survival, and the subtle solace found in small victories. With the coins safely corralled into their leather pouch, Mary settles back upon the low stool, her posture perfectly still as she prepares for the next step, allocating each piece according to necessity and survival. Before her on the wooden plank lies the final tally, copper pennies and silver shillings gleaming in the lamplight. Now comes the delicate calculus of survival, dividing rent and board, reserving funds for the weekly medical examination, and setting aside a precious tomorrow coin in a hidden pocket for hope's sake. She reaches first for the rent and board portion. Mary unlatches the pouch's drawstring and spills out a small handful of copper pennies onto the plank. The pennies scatter with soft, muted clinks, their warm hue reflecting the flicker of candlelight. She arranges them into an even row, counting deliberately. 1, 2, 3. Each count a silent nod to Mrs. Cartwright's expectant ledger. Inhale, the reassuring solidity of copper. Exhale, the acceptance that warmth and shelter come at a price. Mary lifts the row of pennies and slides them into a small wooden box, labelled in faded ink, rent and board. The box's lid creaks as it closes, swallowing the coins in a muted embrace. There is subtle humour in the box's presence, an almost quaint relic in a world of whispered transactions and hidden pouches. Here lie our dues, it might whisper if it could speak. So do keep us fed. Next comes the allocation for weekly medical checks. Mary retrieves a row of silver shillings, those cooler, weightier pieces that click with authority as they meet the plank. She counts them out. 1, 2, each count precise, each pause a moment to acknowledge its importance. The weekly check, performed by Dr. Harrison, is not simply a formality, but a lifeline in an age without modern medicine. Those coins represent more than business. They are a pledge to sustain health, to ensure the parlour's doors remain open. With a graceful sweep, Mary transfers the counted shillings into a small leather pouch marked with a discreet cross, a silent symbol of health's cost. The pouch's leather is soft but worn, the drawstring supple under her fingers. She ties it off with a single, firm knot, then tucks it away beside her bedroll for tomorrow morning's early visit. In that knot lies both practicality and peace of mind, a promise that, costlier than rent, her body must endure. Finally, Mary turns to the last coin, her tomorrow reserve. From the pouch's deepest recess, she withdraws a single copper penny, the smallest denomination, yet today, it bears the weight of aspiration. She holds it between thumb and forefinger, feeling its familiar grooves and raised rim. This coin is not for any obligation, but for possibility. Perhaps a small treat, a bit extra for pantry supplies, or simply a reminder that even in her constrained world, hope can be purchased, if only in tiny increments. With reverent care, Mary slips that penny into the hidden pocket, sewn into her gown's lining, a secret chamber she crafted herself in a seamstress's quiet hour. The pocket's entrance is nearly invisible, a narrow slit tucked beneath a fold of velvet. The act of stashing the penny carries its own quiet triumph, a small defiance of circumstance, a token of tomorrow's promise. As the wooden plank lies once more cleared of coins, Mary closes her eyes and inhales deeply. In that breath she tastes the faint copper tang of rent, the cool metallic scent of health's expense, and the comforting warmth of a single saved coin. Exhale, the steady hum of survival coursing through her veins, a reminder that each piece, each allocation, is part of the careful balancing act that sustains her life here. In the parlour's gentle hush, she offers a faint private smile. The work is done. Again, and the night's reflections can unfold in the delicate space between obligations met and dreams nurtured. And so, dear listener, imagine your own tiny budget of coins, the measured rows, the precise counts, the ritual of division. Feel the weight of each piece in your hand, the soft click as it finds its compartment, and the quiet satisfaction that comes from honouring duties while preserving a sliver of tomorrow's hope. In that slow, deliberate allocation, discover a reflection on dignity, debt and dreams, woven together by the steady rhythm of practical care. Once the rent and fees are settled, Mary turns her attention to the parlour's most clandestine corner, a section of loose floorboard tucked beneath her low stool. Here, she crafted a secret cache, her hidden purse, an unassuming refuge for the night's extra coin, and a small beacon of hope in a life balanced precariously between need and necessity. Imagine the soft creak as Mary eases herself from the stool, the wooden plank beneath her shifting just enough to reveal a slender gap. She kneels, fingertips grazing the floor's worn grain, tracing the edges of the loose board. The wood here is smoother from years of use, its surface polished by boots that have come and gone in search of comfort. Underneath, she senses cooler air, carrying the faintest hint of cellar damp, a subtle reminder of the world beneath ordinary appearances. Mary presses gently on the board's far edge, and it lifts with a muted sigh, like a secret finally permitted to speak. Beneath lies a shallow recess, carved just wide enough for a small leather purse. The purse herself is modest, a square of soft, dark leather, edges stitched with coarse cotton thread, its drawstring frayed but serviceable. She slides her hand inside, feeling the familiar bulge of a single copper penny, and nothing more. Hold that penny between your fingers for a moment. Its surface is slightly rough where Mary's thumb has worn away the mint's design. Inhale. The faintest hint of leather, the lingering echo of coal smoke. Exhale, the comforting weight of possibility. That single penny, saved from a night's earnings, represents more than currency. It is a testament to fortitude, a sliver of autonomy hidden in plain sight. As Mary draws the purse free, she leans back to rest against the wall. The purse's leather breathes beneath her palm, its supple texture speaking of quiet resilience. She unties the drawstring, and the penny falls into her palm with a soft clink, a private chime marking a solitary victory. In the hush of the parlor, the sound feels like a companionable whisper. You did well. Mary turns the purse over in her hand. The leather's surface carries faint impressions, tiny indentations from past coins, slight creases where she once pressed a faded note into its folds. If the purse could speak, it might recount tales of desperate hours, of nights spent counting in secret pockets sewn into seams. Yet it remains silent, content to be its keeper's quiet ally. There is subtle humor in the scenario. Mary pictures the purse offering its own brand of counsel. Better safe than sorry, it might quip, even if it's only one poor penny. In her mind's eye, she imagines its remonstrations if she ever emptied it recklessly. But tonight, that penny stays firmly within its leather walls, a seed of tomorrow planted in soil of vulnerability. After a moment's contemplation, Mary places the penny back into the purse and tugs the drawstring tight. She lowers the purse back into its hidden hollow, smoothing the floorboard into place with a soft tap. The board settles flush, concealing the cash once more. In the dim light, the plank's grain aligns seamlessly with its neighbors, rendering the secret utterly invisible. Mary stands, brushes dust from her skirts, and offers a small nod to the parlor's silent witness. The hidden purse remains concealed, its promise tucked beneath the floor, where only she can retrieve it. In that clandestine act lies a profound reassurance, that even in the stormiest of needs, a small mercy endures, saved for the day when hope alone must suffice. And so, dear listener, imagine your own hidden purse beneath a loose plank, the cool recess, the careful lift, the singular tactile thrill of retrieving a saved coin. Let the hush of that moment settle in your thoughts, and carry with you the gentle reminder that in our quietest refuges, small hopes can flourish, ready to sustain us when we need them most. The candle's glow has softened to a steady amber, as Mary settles on the edge of the low stool, muscles still reminding her of the night's demands. At her side, Clara opens a small, tin container of lavender-scented salve, a simple remedy born of Mrs. Cartwright's insistence on modest comforts. The salve's lid creaks in welcome, revealing its pale, buttery contents. Clara scoops a fingertip's worth of salve and brings it into Mary's line of sight. The ointment's surface is smooth, almost luminous, with a faint purple tint that hints at the blossoms from which its essence was drawn. Clara's other hand rests lightly on Mary's shoulder, anchoring the moment in gentle companionship. Imagine the first cool touch of salvers as Clara presses it against Mary's aching wrist. The balm yields easily, spreading in a quiet ribbon of relief. Inhale. The sweet herbaceous fragrance of lavender unfolds like a soft breeze across a summer meadow. Exhale. The tension in Mary's muscles begins to loosen, serenaded by that floral whisper. Clara's fingers move with practiced care, massaging the balm into Mary's joints. First the wrist, then the crook of her elbow, each need deliberate and unhurried. The salve's texture is slightly oily, but not slick, offering just enough resistance to heighten the sense of touch. Every swirl of Clara's thumb draws out a tiny sigh from Mary, a testament to the salve's quiet potency. Beneath the scent of lavender, faint undercurrents of wax and olive oil emerge, reminders that this mixture is as much about preservation as it is about fragrance. Clara hums softly, her voice low enough not to shatter the parlor's calm. Mary catches the tune's lullaby quality, and allows herself a small smile, the kind that warms the spirit as much as the salve warms the skin. There is subtle humor in the ritual, Mary imagines the salve's own contented murmur. Yes, this is my moment, as though the lavender derived some satisfaction from its nightly performance, and Clara, in her whispered hum, might be coaxing the salve's potency. Do your work, my dear, she might tease. As Clara moves to Mary's shoulders, the salve cushions each press of her knuckles. The heat from Clara's hands activates the balm, causing it to melt almost into liquid silk. Mary's breath deepens with each knead, matching Clara's steady rhythm. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. In that unspoken alignment, tension yields to ease. Clara's hands glide along Mary's collarbone, where a faint ache lingers from the weight of corset stays and the heft of layered petticoats. The salve seeps into the skin, and for an instant, Mary feels weightless, as though the balm has lifted more than muscle stiffness, carrying away the day's burdens on waves of scent. In the corner of the parlor, the lavender sachets tucked beneath mattresses might nod in approval, sharing aromatic kinship with Clara's salve. Together they form a circle of lavender guardians, from tiny cloth pouches to potent ointments warding off the aches that accumulate in Mary's body and heart. When Clara finally lifts her hands, Mary remains still, eyes closed, letting the last of the salve's cool whisper settle into her skin. She breathes in the room's layered fragrances, lavender, rosewater, coal smoke, and exhales a breath of quiet gratitude. In her mind's eye, she sees the bare attic floor, the patchwork quilt, and the silent roommate's steady rise and fall. Here, in Clara's tenderness, those earlier trials feel somehow gentler. As the tin clicks closed, Clara offers Mary a brief conspiratorial grin before returning the salve to its hidden nook. The parlor exhales around them, a soft acknowledgement of care given and received. Mary flexes her fingers, noting the salve's lingering caress, a promise of renewed strength come morning. And so, dear listener, imagine Clara's hands at your own joints, the lavender-scented salve gliding across your skin, each gentle press dissolving tension. Let the flowers hush guide you into calm reflection, carried on the steady rhythm of friendship's healing touch. As Clara's hands finish their work with the lavender-scented salve, the parlor settles into a deeper hush, one that cradles not only the body but the spirit. In this quieter moment, Clara leans in close, her voice dropping to a soft murmur that barely stirs the air. You were splendid tonight, she begins, each syllable shaped with care, as though it were itself a healing ointment. Imagine those words drifting across the space between them, soft as moth wings against silk. The phrase carries warmth, a gentle caress that contrasts with the cool night beyond the windows. Mary feels the salve's lingering embrace on her skin, and then Clara's whispered encouragement wraps around her heart, easing the weight of doubt she has carried since dawn. Clara's voice is low but clear, steady as a metronome set to the slow tempo of renewal. She offers specifics. Your laughter just right. Not too eager, not too faint, perfect. Here, the whispered praise anchors itself in Mary's memory, each word a small talisman against the night's fatigue. There is subtle humour in the exactness. It is as if Clara has conducted a post-performance critique, but one delivered with genuine affection rather than stern rigour. Inhale, the hush of candlelight. Exhale, the soft echo of approval. Clara continues. And that story, the French anecdote with the baker's apprentice, brilliant touch. I saw him lean in. Mary pictures the client's posture, remembered through Clara's observant eye. The praise transforms from general kindness into a nuanced acknowledgement of skill, reminding Mary that her artistry in conversation is both noticed and valued. Each whispered encouragement becomes its own stroke of care. Clara brushes a stray curl behind Mary's ear and adds, "You have such grace under circumstances." The pause, filled with unspoken understanding, acknowledges the brothel's delicate balance between necessity and dignity. Mary allows herself a small private smile at Clara's tact. It is praise laced with empathy, as though Clara recognizes not only Mary's performance but the cost at which it came. Soft words continue to unfurl, your posture regal, yet inviting. Clara's voice is a lullaby, its rhythm mirroring the steady rock of a cradle. The parlor's shadows shift in response, their gentle sway echoing the whispers. Mary feels the tension in her shoulders ease, as though each compliment loosens the knots of self-doubt tethered to her spine. There is a subtle interplay of humour and solace in Clara's tone. At one point she teases, "I half expected you to be a duchess undercover." The remark, though playful, underscores the full effectiveness of Mary's transformation. In that jest lies acknowledgement of the finer points of their shared craft, the ability to navigate social currents with poise worthy of nobility, even when one's own life feels far removed from grand trappings. As the final embers of the candle gutter low, Clara brushes Mary's arm and concludes, "Rest now, friend. Tomorrow we begin anew." The whispered encouragement rests in the parlor's quiet like a soft feather laid upon velvet. Mary closes her eyes, letting the words mingle with the lavender's hush and the south's retreating coolness. In that stillness, she savors the delicate alchemy of spoken kindness and tactile care. Clara's whispers are more than mere compliments. They are the threads that bind their resilience together, weaving comfort from the evening's trials. Each phrase, meted, measured, sincere, becomes a balm for doubt and fatigue, a gentle guide back towards self-assurance. And so, dear listener, imagine these whispered words carried on even breaths. You were splendid. Allow them to echo softly in your mind, mingling with your own quiet reflections. In their gentle resonance, find renewal proof that in friendship's hush, encouragement can become as potent as any salve. The parlor's candle has dwindled to a soft ember by the time Mary and her companions gather once more, this time around a tiny chipped teacup perched on a low lacquered table. Music to their ears is the faint hiss of the kettle's last bubble, as steam coils upward in lazy spirals. Inhale, the gentle scent of steeping leaves, earthy, slightly tannic, mingles with residual lavender and coal smoke, crafting an aromatic lullaby that settles across the room. Mary lifts the cup. Notice how the delicate rim bears a hairline crack, a testament to past evening's clatter and careful mending. She brings it to her lips and sips. The tea is weak, more water than leaf, a pale amber whisper of its potential strength. The first taste is cool, a subtle reminder that luxury here is measured in kindness rather than potency. Yet even this modest brew warms her throat in a way that surpasses any fire's heat. Across from her, Clara watches the steam catch the candlelight, like a miniature aurora dancing atop the cup. With a small nod, she tips her own chipped cup in Mary's direction, a silent toast. "To survival," Clara whispers, and the others echo the sentiment in hushed choruses of agreement. Each sip becomes a shared ritual, a small act of solidarity distilled into liquid form. Observe the choreography of hands. Mary's fingers curve around the cup, brushing the painted floral motif, faded roses and vines, feeling every inch of smooth porcelain. At the same time, another woman, Sarah, brings a spoon to the side, stirring the remnants of sugar with gentle circles. The spoon's soft clink against cup and saucer punctuates the room's muted hush, like a distant bell, tolling comfort. There is subtle humor in the moment too. Mary imagines the teacup's inner thoughts. "Ah, the grand finale of our day. Weak as I may be, I am wanted." She smiles inwardly, recalling afternoons when a strong brew meant little more than stimulation. Tonight, she treasures the tea's gentle strength and the company that elevates it far beyond its modest flavor. Between sips, the women whisper plans for a brighter dawn. Clara suggests pooling a few pence to buy fresh milk if the dairy woman deigns to grace us. Mary proposes pooling efforts to repair the window's cracked pane before winter winds arrive. Another softly mentions a rumor of extra bread crusts at the pantry tomorrow. Each idea floats on the steam above the cup, an exhaled hope that tomorrow may bring small mercies. Listen to their voices, low and even, each tone carrying empathy and resolve. They speak not of grand revolutions, but of trivial victories. Enough coal to last the night, a spare ribbon to brighten a gown, a hearty crust to ward off hunger. These plans, though modest, carry the weight of possibility, woven into the parlor's fading light as steadfast threads of communal care. A final sip warms Mary's lips, its cool edges now gone, leaving behind only a memory of flavor. She sets the cup down with a feather-light sigh, so practiced in this ceremony that the clink of porcelain sounds both foreign and familiar. Clara mirrors the motion, and soon all cups rest upon saucers, silent vessels emptied of content, but brimming with shared experience. The kettle, now silent, seems to draw breath in sympathy with the women's quiet exhale. The parlor, too, holds its own hush in reverence. Between each small plan and soft encouragement, a peace settles that neither time nor toil can wholly disturb. And so, dear listener, imagine cradling that chipped cup of weak tea in your hands. Feel the porcelain's cool curve, Taste the gentle warmth of watered-down leaves, and let each shared sip settle your spirit. In the soft clink of spoon and cup, in the whispered schemes of a better tomorrow, discover the true balm of companionship, a simple, steady elixir that whispers, "We survive, and in surviving, we dream." Night's hush settles over the parlour, folding its velvet curtains tight against London's damp chill. In this quiet, Mary allows her mind to wander beyond coins and curtains to the larger stage upon which she and her companions play their assigned roles. Here, far from polite parlours and public scorn, she contemplates a paradox that has shadowed her every step since dawn: society's double standard. Imagine the world beyond these walls. By day, respectable voices decry women like Mary as sinners, their muffled condemnation echoing through pulpits and parlours alike. Shameful, they murmur, as though witnessing a crime more heinous than any lawlessness on the street. Yet come nightfall, when gas lamps cast their golden glow and doors lock behind hushed feet, those same voices beckon, softly, eagerly, to the very women they shunned by daylight. Mary's reflection in the mirror seems to waver with the weight of that hypocrisy. She sees the powdered mask that shields her from both scorn and exposure, the velvet gown that cloaks her inelegance, and behind it all, a woman whose worth is measured in both coins and contempt. Inhale, the sweet tang of rosewater still lingering on her skin. Exhale, a dry bitterness at the irony she must embody every evening. She runs a fingertip along the edge of a single silver shilling resting in her hidden pouch. In a town council meeting, that coin might represent a citizen's dues, a mark of civic pride. Here, in her discreet census, it signifies a fleeting moment of agency, yet arrives with a silent frown from the world outside. Mary recalls the cloying whisper of a judge's wife who scoffed, "Such work is beneath a proper lady," even as a tradesman's cough rumbled outside her window, longing for the comfort only women of her sort could provide. The parlour's hush feels complicit, as though the very shadows nod in grim recognition of this divide. Each candle flicker sketches thin silhouettes of contradiction on the walls, saintly exhortations paired with clandestine solicitations, moral pamphlets passed in broad daylight, opposite furtive coin exchanges at dusk. The shadows say, "We see you," and Mary returns their glance with a measured tilt of her chin. She does not need their approval, only their acknowledgement. There is subtle humour in this revelation. Mary imagines society's moral arbiters convening over tea, condemning those fallen women, only to slip quietly out the back door once moonlight falls, their own need exceeding their feigned virtue. A sly smile drifts across Mary's face as she pictures their startled relief in finding solace where they least expected it. The hypocrisy is so predictable it becomes almost theatrical, another piece of scripted drama she has learned to navigate. Beneath that smile, however, lies a flicker of ache. Mary knows the toll of this paradox. Trading respect for respite, mastering performance at the price of authenticity. She remembers the seamstress's sweatshop, 16 hours of labour under flickering gaslight, and how, for all its hardship, she felt less judged than she does now, cloaked in velvet and powder. In that memory she finds a curious comfort. Even the harshest factories offered straightforward work. Here the work skyrocks between moral extremes. Yet in this very irony, Mary glimpses a fragile promise. If society both rejects and depends on her, then she occupies a space of undeniable power, albeit wielded in whispers and half-shadows. Every shilling earned, every secret kept, becomes a testament to her resilience. In that realization, the double standard loses some of its sting. She is both condemned and coveted, judged and essential, a paradox she can quietly own. Mary closes her eyes and allows a slow exhale to carry away the tension of contradiction. The lavender-hinted air in the parlour holds its breath with her, settling into a unified hush. In that stillness, she senses the solidarity of her companions, the shared understanding that though constrained by necessity, they navigate these paradoxes together. And so, dear listener, as you ponder society's own contradictions where praise and scorn collide, consider the quiet courage required to stand between two worlds. Feel the steady rhythm of breath that bridges shame and survival, and in that space discover the seeds of quiet hope, the power to transform hypocrisy into fortitude, one measured step at a time. In the soft hush that follows whispered confidences and shared cups of tea, Mary lies back against her quilted patchwork of faded dreams. The parlour's candles have guttered low, their final embers casting gentle halos on the walls. As sleep's quiet gravity draws near, Mary allows her mind to wander to a world untouched by velvet dresses and candlelit negotiations. A world of picket fences, daylight chores and ordinary comforts. Imagine pale morning light slanting through a clean window-paned cottage. The air smells of fresh laundry flapping on a line, crisp linen sheets, gingham curtains, and a soft cotton petticoat drying in the gentle breeze. Mary breathes in that imagined freshness, letting it wash over her like a cool bath after a long day. Inhale the subtle tang of sun-warmed cloth. Exhale the fatigue that once stiffened her joints, loosening with each dream-fueled breath. In this vision, Mary steps across a neat gravel path, bordered by blossoms, peonies, foxgloves, and the occasional brave daffodil peering upright from last night's dew. She feels the crunch of gravel underfoot, a rhythmic counterpoint to her steady heartbeat. The path leads to a welcoming door, painted a calm sky blue, its brass knocker polished to a gleam. There she pauses, hand resting lightly on the smooth wood, and imagines the possibilities beyond. Inside waits a hearth already warming the kitchen, logs crackling into life, sending gentle sparks that dance like fireflies against the back wall. A kettle whistles with polite expectation, steam rising in a neat curl. Mary pictures herself reaching for a simple teacup. No chipped edges, no faded patterns, just white porcelain that feels solid and complete in her hand. She pours a bright, robust brew and cradles the cup, savouring its uncomplicated heat. In the corner stands a wooden table neatly set for breakfast. On one side, a basket of freshly baked rolls sits under a clean cloth, their crusts golden and inviting. On the other, a bowl of fruit, rosy apples, and plump berries awaits gentle washing under a tap's clear flow. Mary imagines her fingers brushing soft toward the fruit's smooth skin, her apron tied just so. Its crisp lines a subtle armor against the world's clamor. Daylight chores beckon next, sweeping wide, polished floors with a straw broom that hums against the boards, washing windows until they sparkle like liquid glass, tending a small herb garden just outside where mint and rosemary promise fragrant seasons. Each task is uncomplicated, finite, a clear beginning, middle and end. No furtive calendars tallying fees, no hidden pouches for coins, only the pleasure of work that leaves the world brightened. In this daydream, neighbors stroll by in unhurried gait, a mother guiding her child to school, the butcher arranging cuts of meat in his window, a postman tipping his hat with a friendly nod. Mary smiles in return, her face unmasked by powder or persona, unshadowed by the necessity of performance. She laughs, lightly, at some gentle jest, the kind that lingers in the air rather than echoing off silk drapes. Midday finds Mary resting on a sunlit porch swing, its ropes creaking softly in the breeze. A plate of cake, simple sponge, with a whisper of sugar, sits on a small table beside her. She tastes it, finding delight in its modest sweetness, imagining that each crumb dissolves not only on her tongue, but within her restless mind, sealing away doubts. As afternoon edges toward evening, the dream shifts gently to twilight chores, feeding hens in a tidy coop, gathering eggs in a woven basket, then returning indoors to the comfort of a flickering candle, not for commerce, but to read a beloved book aloud, its pages worn soft by years of turning. The hush of the moment is profound, punctuated only by the crackle of the hearth and the rustle of paper. Finally, Mary reaches the end of her dream day, slipping beneath crisp sheets that smell faintly of lavender and sun. The quilt is not patchwork, but a single, sturdy weave, its weight familiar and unburdened by necessity. She closes her eyes in this imagined world, where chores are chores, and dreams of normalcy rest not on stolen coins but on simple joys. And as you, dear listener, drift toward your own sleep, let Mary's vision guide you, the ripple of gravel paths, the crackle of homely hearths, the soft rustle of fresh linens. In these fragile morning mist dreams, find a gentle promise that even if only in the hush between waking and slumber, normalcy can bloom, offering both respite and quiet hope for the dawn to come. As Mary settles beneath her patchwork quilt, the world outside her attic window softens to a distant murmur. The final candle has long since guttered out, leaving only the faintest glow of street lamps filtering through soot-streaked glass. In this half-darkness, Mary draws in a slow, deliberate breath, one that fills her lungs with the memory of coal smoke and lavender, of soft quilts and whispered confidences. Imagine the cool air sliding through the attic's cracks, curling around her shoulders like a silken shawl. Each inhalation brings the city's nighttime perfume, damp cobblestones, distant carriage wheels, and the muted echo of factory whistles lulled to rest. As she holds the breath, the hushed rattling of the roof slate tiles seems to resonate within her chest, a gentle percussion that marks the boundary between wakefulness and sleep. Then comes the exhale, a quiet, unhurried release. Mary lets the breath slip past her lips in one continuous sigh, as though she were emptying not only her lungs, but the day's burdens. Coin counts, performance rehearsals, the weight of moral paradoxes. The sigh wanders through the attic's rafters, stirring a loose floorboard that emits a solitary creak in response. It is neither complaint nor alarm, merely a companionable acknowledgement of shared vigil. Inhale again. Softer this time, drawing in the attic's residual warmth. The faint spiced scent of tea leaves clinging to the walls. The honeyed echo of seamstress candles long extinguished. Exhale. The rhythm slows further, each second stretching into a gentle moment of release. The mattress sighs under Mary's shifting weight, as if granting its own assent to the transition. Beyond the attic, the city murmurs continue their nocturne, a distant dog's soft bark, the occasional clang of a shutter closing, a lone footstep treading cobbles with purposeful care. These sounds, once charged with urgency, now drift around Mary like lullabies, each one inviting her to sink deeper into stillness. The boundary between her breath and the world's heartbeat blurs into a shared cadence of calm. There is subtle humor in the attic's final act. A moth flutters against the windowpane, its delicate wing beats sounding like the faint flutter of a remorseful apology. Mary imagines the moth whispering, "I meant no disturbance," before retreating into shadow. Even the smallest creature, it seems, observes this hallowed moment of reprieve. Mary's thoughts, once so intricate and insistent, unfurl into softer patterns. Visions of picket fences and sunny chores give way to the straightforward comfort of darkness. Shadows pool at the corners of the room, not as threats but as gentle guardians of rest. The quilt's faded florals, once vivid in the day's glare, now fade into indistinct forms, petals merging with dreams yet to come. With each breath, Mary feels the day's tapestry pulling free from her mind. The mattress's complaints, the hidden purse's promise, Clara's whispered encouragement, all settle into a quiet archive, stored safely behind closed eyelids. The attic's creaks speak no more than hushed goodnights. The city's last murmurs drift off like distant lullabies. In that final exhale, Mary embodies both survivor and dreamer. Her body, weary yet resilient, finds solace in the breath's steady arc. Her mind, ever the stage for memories and hopes, surrenders to a darkness that promises renewal rather than erasure. And so, dear listener, let your own breath mirror Mary's. Inhale the memory of your day, its textures, its tensions, its triumphs, and then exhale them into the welcoming hush of night. Allow the gentle creaks of your surroundings to lull you deeper, and feel the steady rhythm of the world's heartbeat guide you across the threshold into sleep's quiet embrace. With that final exhale, you too begin again. And so, our journey through the quiet corridors of Mrs. Cartwright's brothel draws softly to a close. We have risen with Mary on her lumpy straw mattress, inhaled the damp cobblestone musk and coal-fire undertones, and shared in her midday rituals of mending silk and whispered confidences over stale crusts. We watched her transform by candlelight, puffing white lead, framing her gaze with practiced waves, stepping into character with a calm resolve. And finally, we counted her coins by the flicker of dying embers, divided rent and fees with solemn care, and tucked away hope in a hidden purse beneath the floorboards. Each moment a silk patch mended under a single candle, a salve of lavender pressed into weary joints, a whispered, "You were splendid tonight," has been a gentle invitation to lean back, draw a steady breath, and let Mary's rhythms lull you. Here, in the hush of shared tea and the final exhale of solidarity, we find not despair but resilience, as fragile and precious as dawn's first light peeking through soot-streaked glass. If tonight's glimpse behind locked doors moved you, there are more stories awaiting your quiet curiosity. Perhaps the everyday alchemy of a Victorian seamstress's workshop, or the hushed solace of a penny gaff theatre at Twilight. Our channel is your companion for slow, immersive explorations that soothe the mind even as they awaken empathy. Rest now, Let the attic's creaks and distant carriage wheels fade into the cadence of your breath. When you're ready for the next chapter, tap into another video, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss our next gentle venture. Share in the comments which detail of Mary's world lingers in your thoughts and where you're watching from. Thank you for keeping Mary's story and countless untold voices of Victorian survival alive this evening. Sleep well until our next tender journey.